The following is a presentation of iRacing on PTR TV. We'd like to thank all of our channel partners for their support. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and we hope you enjoy today's broadcast. Speedway, Indiana, the famous rectangle that's been in existence since 1909. The famous four corners have held winners after winners in different series, is one of the most world-renowned racetracks in the country. NASCAR has taken its turn here since 1994, predominantly on the rectangle layout, but for the past 2 years we've found ourselves through the twists and turns of the interior section. That's exactly where we find ourselves here this evening here on PTR TV, as we do present to you the 100% Cup Series race number 22 on their full series campaign right here in Speedway, Indiana for tonight's road course action. Giving you the calls tonight is going to be myself, Corey Silva. We do have Andre from 3 Wide TV and Tyler Ord, one of our PTR TV guys. We've got a 3-man booth all to give you guys the road course action here this evening. And obviously, guys, this is a new track, at least from an iRacing perspective. This track has been recently updated as it's been, modernized in the past few years in reality. So these guys have only had about a week to learn the ins and outs of this new layout, and it'll be interesting to see who can tame it. Oh, actually, hold on. There you go.
Well, anyway, Corey, it will be interesting to see how these drivers are able to adapt from the old layout to the new layout. It is pretty similar, but, you know, some updates and slightly different configuration than what we had previously. But I'm pretty confident these drivers will be able to adapt to the change, and really looking forward to this exciting race tonight.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a blast. I know that just from my perspective, my team, and as well as some of the teams I'm kind of in contact with, they put in a lot of effort practicing this week. Probably more effort this week than in the last 2 or 3 weeks combined. It's a huge learning curve, and this car is built for road course racing, but despite that, it seems like it can be a bit of a handful if you don't know what you're doing with it. So these guys have been really putting in the time, putting in the laps, and I think we're going to see it pay off tonight.
Yeah, I expect that to be the case. Mainly the biggest changes are, as we're watching right now, Tanner Marty on screen. There's this new chicane here after this right-hander. This has been here on the old configuration, but we have the new chicane here, which kind of takes me back to the Charlotte Roval version 1, where it does take a lot of guts to get through there efficiently. And then this section at the end of the back straightaway, if you want to call it that, has been modified and kind of consolidated. And then, of course, the end of the track has changed as well, so I guess more has changed than I gave it credit for. But we do have our point standings that we can offer. Of course, last week was not broadcasted at Pocono. We covered the race at New Hampshire 2 weeks ago, which had a kerfuffles worth of cautions. But John Delaney is still our playoff leader with the 7 wins on the season. Damaris Hickenbottom, he was out of playoff contention even after his win due to his point standings, but he has managed to get himself locked in. 9 guys locked in with 4 races left to go. See that we do have some guys right on the cutoff. Kyle Ammon 1 point out, Bobby Anderson 6 points out, Brandon Pierce 9. So we'll see who the road course ringers are tonight, guys, and if indeed some of those positions change here as we get closer and closer to the cutoff race.
I want to give a quick shout out. You might notice the number 57 is not being piloted by its regular driver, Cameron Stone. Cam got a fill-in, Carl Dodson, who normally would pilot the number 2. Cam's getting married today, so a big congratulations to Cam Stone. Hopefully you are enjoying yourself wherever you are, and hopefully the fill-in driver can do that 57 some justice. I've seen the wheel work that Carl's done in the past, and I'm pretty confident in him as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'll tell you what, guys, watching this practice, one thing that really sticks out to me, other than that really fast chicane, is the Indy road course just has a lot of hard braking zones. And I'm thinking that's going to be a good opportunity for some passing tonight.
And you mentioned, too, these cars are designed to be better on road courses, but they're still stock cars, and trying to lumber these big, heavy machines all around this, in some cases, a very technical layout. As you mentioned, the long straights and the tight turns, I think really will present a challenge to our drivers, and I think the ones who will be able to adapt and manage their tires as well will be up towards the front at the end of this race.
I did see the Xfinity race, as if you're watching this live, that obviously aired today, and entering corner number 1 here, definitely on the opening restart and any subsequent starts, definitely something to watch out for. But quickly, our keys to the race here, sponsored by, we're still looking for a sponsor for it. Save those rear tires, as you said, Tyler, these are still difficult in heavy cars to get around the track. Wheel hop, as you alluded to, Andre, braking zones are prominent here, and wheel hop is going to be a difficult thing. And we do have, as we'll talk about in our race details, we do have some cautions that will throw off the natural flow of the race, so strategy is going to be of the essence here this evening. But we are just about to head down trackside for our starting lineup. Of course, starting lineup was already predetermined, so let's go ahead and get ready to give that to you. The PTR TV starting lineup here today from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. On tonight's poll, we do have our points leader and our playoff leader with 7 wins on the season. John Delaney is going to lead our field down this evening. Alexander Vandesant on the outside of the front row. In third, we have Neil Pearson with Matt Long going to be in the 4th spot. Blake Giglio in 5th, and Robert Anderson going to be in 6th. Tyler.
Starting 7th tonight will be the 83 of Adam Betfano. And to his outside, the 07 of, and it went a little too fast on my screen, but in 9th, Derek Heatman, and to his outside, Ralph Hutchinson in 10th in the 54. Starting 11th will be the 63 of Bryson Hicksonbaugh, and 12th, Tanner Marty.
Looking a little bit further back from 12th, we got Mark Paget in the number 8 machine starting 13th. Sean O'Brien Jr. in that 65 machine is going to be starting 14th, a little bit behind them. You got Sean's teammate, Jason Taylor, in the number 12 starting 15th. Jason Baker starting there in 16th. 17 and 18 is going to go to Dylan Fritz and Carl Dodson, respectively. Corey.
Up in the 19th, we have Devin Medeiros, Brandon Pierce. Remember, we just talked about him on the playoff bubble. He's going to be in 20th. Michael Christopher in 21st. Kyle Amon, another one of those playoff bubble drivers, in 22nd. Alex Prince in 23rd. And we do have Tracy in 24th. And we'll at the bottom, guys. Scroll on the bottom of the screen. You can see admin there, Kevin Steele. Damaris Hickenbottom, talked about him. Patrick Mouche going to be shotgun on our field this evening. And just very quickly, our race details, sponsored by Sunshine Boy on Twitch. Our commentator Evan here, his Twitch channel. You can give him a follow. Of course, the Open Setup League, as we all well and know, these guys put a lot of time into their race setups. 2 to 4 random yellows. We'll get into a little bit more detail on those, but the race control software will kind of dictate when the caution will fly, given some different parameters in place. As you can see some dust on the track here. And then our stages will be a lap 15 and 35. However, they're going to be rolling stages. Points will be assessed, but the yellow flag will not fly.
And the random yellows would really stress me out as a crew chief in this race, because you don't know for sure when they're going to happen. And obviously this is a pretty long layout, so you can pit and I think stay on the same lap. But, you pit it at the wrong time and a random caution comes out. That could really change your strategy and put you in a bad place as far as track position.
Yeah, these guys are really going to be playing it by ear. I think the longer they run under a green flag, the more likely a yellow flag is going to be if the system decides to throw it. So you got to think, if we were to get a 20 or 30 lap green flag run, these guys are probably going to get a little bit antsy and start thinking, I can't pit now because that yellow flag's coming out. But they got to keep an eye on that fuel gauge, keep an eye on the tires, especially as Corey pointed out in the keys to the race. You got to take care of those rear tires, because with all these heavy braking zones, yeah, you got to watch out for wheel hop, but you also have to accelerate out of those braking zones. And if you don't got the rear tires underneath you, you're not going anywhere fast. So it's going to be a challenge all around.
Well, actually, as I'm thinking about it, I do remember that there is a little bit of a nuance with the road course NextGen tires coated on iRacing. So actually, tires may not be that big of a deal. We'll have to find out, because I have heard that road course tires don't wear for some reason. So maybe that'll be a wrench in all of our pre-race here, coming off of the turn 2 section of the oval. And then this is the updated section. Before, in the old F1 days, they would just take turn 1 oval in reverse and full yeet down that front straightaway at record speeds, but instead we have this new little chicane complex here, and the pit road would be right off to the top left of your screen right there. But here we are on a Saturday night, getting ready for some racing, as the lights are still on the pace car. So I'll pause on my race introduction there.
Yeah, one more lap to go here, Corey. But we talked about the tires, but again, maybe saving fuel. We did a race at Pocono earlier this week, and I know some drivers are trying to stretch the fuel as long as they can. These drivers might be able to coast a little bit, and maybe think in the back of their mind that, as previously mentioned, if you can stay out just a couple laps longer, you might be able to avoid getting stuck in that caution loop. Yeah. And can get yourself towards the front. Yeah,
I just want to quickly point out here, guys, look at all the dust. I mean, I don't know how much this is actually going to mean in terms of grip, but just from a visual perspective, it almost seems like we're at Eldora on this front straightaway with all the gravel traps here. These guys have basically just completely dirtied this track up. That must, especially on these restarts and such, where you're going to be in and out of the groove, may get some dirt on those tires.
Yeah, that definitely can cause some issues as far as traction, especially going into turn number 1. And as you talked about before, I think on these restarts and as we get closer to the end of the race, if there's a caution, look for complete chaos in the first couple turns.
And you guys are talking about differences in grip. The oval surface for the straightaway and the final corner and the infield are pretty much completely different surfaces. You're going to be dealing with completely varying grip levels. So that transition in turn 1, it's going to be tricky, not just because it's such a heavy braking zone. There's going to be a lot of chaos, everybody trying to outbrake each other, but also because you're going from a diamond graded track made out of concrete down to an asphalt surface, which is going to feel completely different in this car. So it'll be fun to watch how these guys navigate this track. It really is a very unique circuit.
Yeah, this track was, I don't believe it's been paved since maybe early 2010s, but they've begun sealing it on a semi-regular basis, which is why it does maintain that darker asphalt color here as we come through the ladder complex. I believe it to be turn 7. See that big curb there. It's fun to take that curb in the Xfinity car with this next-gen car being low to the ground with the diffuser. Not sure how well you're going to want to curb hop, but this section right here, guys, this final section exiting the infield, heading back into Oval 2, this requires a lot of skill and a lot of finesse because you're really asking a lot of the car through especially a sweeper section. There's some banking transitions. You're going up and down from the flat onto a mid-apron, back onto the oval, and then back onto the brakes into the infield. This section of the track probably the most challenging in my opinion. See that flat, and then you're very quickly onto the entry of turn 2, getting some banking, and then right back down to this flat here. And the lights are out, so the pace car will now take that right-hand turn, and I believe we will be waiting on Barney the Flagman, I do believe, to get this race underway. A Saturday night on PSITV. Corey, Andre, and Tyler giving you the call. It's going to be a good night of racing, and who's going to be the road course master and kiss the bricks? Let's find out together. Delaney's going to get on the loud pedal earlier in the zone there and get us underway here at the Brickyard.
Yeah, that was a great start by him. He's already a few car lengths out as they head towards turn number 1.
They're going to barrel into this corner. They're going to have to be really careful. There's some 2 and 3 wide back in the field. Jonathan Delaney and Alexander Van de Sant getting through there pretty successfully, but look at this. The number 57 having to check up. They went 3 wide for just a minute. That's going to cost Dodson a few positions as they go 3 wide again. Sean O'Brien Jr. making his presence known, but somehow through all this chaos, guys, they kept it pointed in the right direction through turn 1.
Yes.
Yeah, multiple drivers locked up there, but luckily no spin outs or anything like that happened.
Yeah, Delaney was able to, as the leader, as you would expect, get out and pull out there to about a 3/4 second lead off at the get-go, but everybody else still see some 3 wide here. That's Hicks and Baugh kind of in the middle, rather on the outside of a sandwich there in the dirt on that 63 machine. He's going to get himself sorted out. Hutchison to the inside of Hoytsma with the 1 machine of Derek Heitman trying to squeeze it in there as they come through that right-hander. Heitman gets on he locks it up there.
In the grass.
And Hoytsma is going to get himself into the dirt.
And I tell you what, that was a lucky recovery for that 07. He had just barely a car width to rejoin because there was a steady stream of cars just barely on the outside of that track, and he managed to get back on track without getting into anybody, kept the car clean, and he lost some time, but I've always said if you're going to make mistakes, then you want to make those mistakes as early as possible. Give yourself time to overcome them, and hopefully you can kind of learn from that experience and improve there. But we got all our relatives there on the left-hand side of the screen. You can see Delaney is out to 0.6 seconds over Van de Sant, and I don't think that's a gap that's going to increase too quickly, guys. Van de Sant is a bit of a road course ringer. That is where most of his experience on iRacing has been on the old right-hand turn circuits. So that 96, I think, is going to be pretty strong tonight. But of course, Jonathan Delaney, you've said it before, Corey, Jonathan Delaney does Jonathan Delaney things, and looks like he's already off to that tonight.
Yeah, but as we kind of talked about now, first off, I'm going to cut my old thought off there. You can see there's no track limits exiting that corner and heading onto the back straightaway. So you really just see everybody, they'll cut the curb there on the chicane, and they'll just go all the way out to that what is meant to be an access pavement, or just kind of an apron style runoff there. There's nothing to stop you, so they will use all of that. But most certainly Delaney has he's been very successful all season, obviously, but Van de Sant at New Hampshire had a car that could have won the race, but due to strategy and just how many cautions we had, that was a very chaotic event. Wasn't able to seal the deal, but he's staying within distance of about a second or so. Don't count out Neil Pearson in third. He's still hanging in there, but there's a huge gap between Long and the 97 car and Blake Giglio, almost 2.5 seconds. It's almost kind of like there's skill caps of the aliens to the modest guys to like everybody else.
You see that a lot with these road races with stock cars, guys. You have a few drivers that really just separate themselves from the rest of the pack. Then you have a bunch of drivers who are kind of in the middle, running around in the same general lap time. And then drivers towards the back that are just in a different wavelength, and you can definitely see the disparity in skills. But again, it's early, only lap 3 of 82, so long ways to go.
Long ways to go indeed. Of course, we do have a stage at lap 15. I do not think a stage caution will be called for the stages tonight, so it'll just be the points awarded when they cross the line, and from there they should keep racing if I am correctly informed.
Yep.
But
rolling stages. The only thing that I don't know is, what if our random caution comes out at a stage? I don't know if that has been considered yet, but the possibility is on the table.
Well, and how long can these guys go on fuel, too? That's another question. Are they going to try to, maybe win the stage by short pitting? I don't know how many laps they can make it on one fuel load.
Well, I know at Watkins Glen, a fuel run is going to be somewhere in the mid-30s in terms of laps, and this track has a lot more hard braking zones, which means you're going to be really getting on that accelerator and using more gas to accelerate. It's also just a bit of a longer circuit in general, so I would say low 30s. That's just kind of a ballpark estimate. And if that is the case...
we've got multiple cars collected.
Dodson, sorry for the bad news there, Andre, but Dodson is around, and Jason Baker had to come to a stop. We'll try to queue up the replay and figure out what caused that parking brake.
Turn 12, that can be a very chaotic corner with that right degree angle they're trying to take.
Yep.
Keep your eye on this 38, Brandon Pierce. He drove it in there really deep. He locked up that right front and just nowhere to go.
Yeah, we'll change our perspective to be that of the front of Pierce. Just have to let me cue this up here. Well, yeah, this is from the front of Pierce. Look at the gap there. And that gap went bye-bye very quickly to the detriment of Dodson.
He definitely just sent it there, guys, and just a little too hard, a little too aggressive, only on lap 4.
But luckily...
Yeah, and I just want to point out, those guys are teammates for this weekend. So that's... I'd like to be a fly on the wall in the team chat right now.
But at least, and again, just kind of announced to how most road races work here on the service, at the very least, they are going to have the opportunity, well, rather Dodson at the very least, is going to have the opportunity to get himself back into the show and not have to just kind of race the whole race from behind. We did have one retiree already. Chad Edwards in the 4 has already taken it behind the wall. Don't know if anything happened, but either way, that is the case with him as Delaney's pulling out. But looks like Neil Pearson starting to close in on Van de Sant there. About 3/4 of a second. Trying to see if there's anything else good going on the racetrack right now. Hoytsma and Sean O'Brien Jr., Dylan Kritz, who I believe is a relatively new name in the series, closing in on, that's for 13th, 14th, 15th.
So I can confirm with the number 4, he was having communication issues with his headset and possibly some other hardware issues. I'm not sure if that was the reason for his retiring. Could just be that he already wasn't really looking forward to this track too much, and the technical difficulties were kind of the final straw. But unfortunate to see the number 4 behind the wall so soon, as this battle between the 34 and the 65 is really starting to heat up here. Again, we got teammates, and hopefully we're not seeing a replay of what happened between teammates last lap.
Yeah, we'll see. And on the Milwaukee Bucks paint on Kritz, well, haha, the Celtics did beat them, even though they lost in the finals, so just have to throw that little shade out there. He's going to take that look to the right side here. This is a difficult part on the track, at least for me in the Xfinity car. I don't know how the NextGen, I haven't taken a ride out there, but he will successfully make the pass there into the infield section for, I believe it to be 13 and 14 of corners here at Indy. But what I do want to do is, I believe, Delaney, I want to go through a whole lap around this place, but Delaney is too fast. So let's go on board with Tanner Marty, because he's the closest person I could see that just crossed the line. Front straightaway, 173 miles per hour. As he closes in on Mark Padgett down to first gear. You can just hear the RPMs there. So it's one of those situations where you kind of want to be in first for the RPMs and the drive off, but for the long-term tires, you kind of want to be in second. But here he comes through the chicane. We'll see what he tops out at the end of the straightaway.
Yeah, I really consider this to be the de facto backstretch of this layout. You can get some really high speeds.
163.
About 165.
Woo-hoo, right to the back
little-
bumper. Little bit of contact with Paget there, but nothing too bad. Gets down to 61. He's going to get passed by Lucas Hoytsma. Again, a lot of first gear here. We'll be interested to see maybe with Delaney if we can catch him, do a whole lap later. Up to second. Oh, and he's getting passed again. So, Tanner Marty, sorry that we caught you on board. We cost you 2 spots here as there goes Dylan Kritz to the inside.
Look at them brake rotors lighting up orange already tonight. I think I gotta wonder if maybe brake fade is going to be an issue later in this race.
That is definitely modeled. The thing with these next-gen cars, and I usually bring it up here on the road courses as Benefield's starting to close in on Anderson for 6th. It does take almost a lap to get these brakes up to temp. So usually on the first lap, you're not really batting with a full house there with the brake power. You have to get those brakes up to temp. But as you kind of said, Andre, you start overusing them here on these long straightaways. It does tend to be a concern, and kind of makes me wonder what they're going to do next year when they take this car to Le Mans. But it's definitely better than the old car, but still definitely a problem.
Yeah, I know they're going to make some modifications to the next-gen car and they take it to Le Mans, but I mean, I remember back in the, what was it, 77 Le Mans, so I wasn't alive, but they had some major issues trying to make the stock car, which again was designed pretty much for oval racing back then, being able to last all 24 hours.
I didn't even know that happened. I'm going to have to go dig in the history books there. Thank you for that little tidbit. You just gave me a YouTube thing to search after this race is over.
And it was Herschel McGriff was one of the drivers who participated.
There's an old story that one of my old racing buddies told me, and I can't remember exactly what year it was, but out at Le Mans they had a run what you brung race where basically anybody could come out with anything that had 4 wheels and an engine or otherwise and just see what kind of lap times they would post. And actually, the fastest car of the day wound up being a sprint car just because of the absurd horsepower to weight ratio. And going down those long straightaways, I mean, he was just gapping people. So, sometimes these oval cars can surprise you on these road courses.
Yeah, the beauty of the next-gen car, akin to what the older bodies were, is these are symmetrical bodies. If you've seen a top-down view, especially the ones that I like, go look at a Gen 4 car top-down. It is absolutely ridiculous how skewed the body is, but these next-gen cars are built completely symmetrical. That way you don't have to build a road car. You don't have to build a super speedway car, a short track car. You theoretically could take a car from Daytona, go to Martinsville, and then take it to a road course.
Yeah, this is the antithesis of the Twisted Sisters, as you mentioned there, Corey, just purely symmetrical, and NASCAR does not take too kindly, as we saw at Pocono last week in real life, if you mess with the body in any way.
Heaven forbid a piece of tape remains on your vehicle, but Michael McDowell, I think that was the worst part of the weekend. Is I don't know what the problem was with him, but he had a top 10 run there taken away with a 100-point penalty. I don't know if you guys heard what actually happened to his car, but I didn't find out.
Yeah, I believe they're actually appealing that decision, and I don't know what the result will be. But yeah, he's been having a pretty good season, relatively speaking, for him and that 34 team. But that's a pretty big blow, 100 points.
At least nobody on the virtual side is going to have to deal with that, because I don't think we have any body mods yet on the iRacing service, but never say never.
Now that would be a great feature, the option to cheat, but at risk of actually getting suspended from the service.
I mean, didn't that happen in Spa last week?
Yes, it did.
Segways.
Yeah, I wonder if these guys can drive through the grass here and make up some time. I don't know.
We're on board. Well, we're taking a look at Tanner Marty again because we're just trying to make him cost some spots. But, I mean, theoretically, look how wide this straightaway is. I mean, come on, Tanner. You know you want to. It's right there.
Well, so our old pal John Delaney, he did some testing earlier in the week, and he sent some screenshots to Kevin and Damaris where he was driving in the grass, and he said, it does work. And Damaris said, I don't even think I need to tell you what our policy is on that.
Even in a stock car, it still works. That's impressive that even in a stock car, it still has a tangible difference. I mean, not that we're advocating cheating, because my personal opinion is everybody in that race should be banned for more than 1 week, to say it nicely. But from a league perspective, yeah, instant man nonetheless, especially with this series where our admins are driving. Speaking of which, where are they? Kevin Steele is running in the 20th position. I like his ride. He has the, I think it's a metallic-esque number 24 Sunoco ride this evening, and Hickenbottom is in the 30th spot. I don't see any damage, so that's a good thing. And, you know, he's locked in the playoffs as long as he can keep above the 25th position. I think the cutoff is under. You may be able to correct me on that. As long as he stays in 25th overall, he will be playoff eligible with that Atlanta win.
It is 25th in points that you have to be, as we do have a yellow flag on the circuit, it would appear.
Now, is that one of our randos? Let's try to go back on any data I may have.
Yeah, I assume that would be a random, because I don't believe iRacing throws out automatic cautions based off of wrecks on road courses. Right? Normally, it's just considered local yellows.
I've heard that they have, but it's super hard to trigger it with the way the algorithms work. So I'm going to take it into consideration that this is one of our random cautions, which is going to lead us directly into what I just said earlier, guys, is this is probably going to come out and encompass lap 15 or come very close to it. So that'll be very interesting how these guys choose to call that.
So I just want to note, for full transparency to the viewer, there is only 2 possible ways cautions could come out tonight. Well, I suppose there's 3. If the admins decide that something has happened that is catastrophic enough, they can manually throw a caution. But as far as automated cautions, there's only 2 reasons. The random ones, which we've discussed, or the accumulative ones that we mentioned at the top of the broadcast, where if all of the drivers in the field accumulate as a whole a certain incident count, the race will trigger a caution. But given the fact that we're only 10 laps in, now I'm not sure where these guys might be getting 1Xs. I'm not sure exactly where the considered track limits are, but I do not believe that we would hit that limit within the short span of 10 laps. So I'm going to assume that this was a completely random caution, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I do have some, back-end telemetry, which does help me out with some information, and there's nothing that dictates what or why the caution was, so it would just be a triggered caution. It did say something happened to Kyle Ammon on lap 8. Trying to take a look at his car and see if maybe there's some sustenance to that thought. Remember, Ammon only 1 point out of a playoff spot right now. Looking at his car, and looks fine. Maybe he just had a little bit of a self-spin back there in 22nd, but $1 million question. What's the strategy call right now? Do you pit? I mean, we're taking ganders. Maybe 25 laps is probably a fuel load, 25, 30, somewhere in that ballpark. You have another caution, rather another stage in 20 laps. There may or may not be 3 more cautions after this. I think those crew chiefs are getting paid, should be getting paid extra for this one.
I personally think that if you really need the points, if you need the stage points, need a stage win, you try to stay out and get it. But if you've already won a race, you're locked into the playoffs, and it's not that big of a deal, you're trying to set yourself up to get the win, then you want to go ahead and come in the pits, get those 4 fresh tires and fuel.
Yeah. I think what we'll do is someone who doesn't pit, Delaney nearly putting himself in the grass there, we'll pick someone who didn't pit, and one of us can have the luxury to have a chat with him on what they think strategy is going to be tonight. So Delaney, Van de Sant staying on the track. Who do we have in the pits? We have that's Neil Pearson and Giglio. A couple guys coming to pit road. Actually, more than a couple.
Split field. Yeah, it's about split, at least from my vantage point. Probably more guys stayed out than went in, but still, I'd say at least 10 drivers. Even more than that came to the pits.
Yeah, pit road pretty busy there. Corey, my pick for an interview would be last week's winner, Bryson Nixon. Bossy, what do you think, maybe?
All right. Well, I know you've talked to him many in the past, so you want to take care of that one?
Alrighty. Bryson Nixon, you got a copy?
Yeah, I got you guys.
one of the drivers that stayed out. We had a bit of a split decision there. A few cars coming down pit road. From your perspective, behind the wheel of that 63, what strategy looking like?
Yeah, it was interesting caution there. You got the guys that are coming in. They're trying to get off sequence so that when we all have to pit in about 15, 20 laps, they'll cycle out front, and maybe they catch the caution that'll help them out.
All right. Well, Bryson, you're coming hot off a win there last week. This is a very different track. I don't think you get much different. But nonetheless, you're up here running inside the top 5. How's the car feel?
Yeah, it feels pretty good. I'm missing a little bit in the slow section here coming up on track. Feels really good in turn 1. We gain a lot of time on Adam and Robert there. And I can keep up with them through the chicane up here, and then I just lose all the time I gained.
All right, Tyler, Corey, any questions for Bryson?
I think pretty much nailed it, man. Wish you luck, and I'll let you get back to it.
Thank you, guys.
Well, and again, that's an example of a driver who's already got a win and has put himself in pretty good position for the playoffs. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for him, in my opinion, to come in the pits. I mean, again, you don't know exactly what to expect with the random cautions, but I think if you're trying to win the race, staying out is a good move.
Yeah, and he did give us a little tidbit of information there, which kind of validates what we said. So he predicts that the other guys will have to pit approximately within 20 laps, and puts them right at that 30-ish fuel load mark. And those guys will have to pit before the next stage. So I'm assuming lights will go out on the pace car this time by, so that would be lap 13 that we're taking the green. So we'll actually go back to green with 14 being completed. So we'll have 1 lap of green to finish stage 1. So basically, you're not going to be able to win both stages, I don't believe, guys. It's kind of akin to how it works in the real life. You're going to kind of have to pick a stage to win. And do you want to set yourself up for the end of it or maximize the stage points?
Unless you're saved by another random caution.
That is very true. Just not something we think. I mean, and if we think about it from a real life perspective, I mean, cautions, unless you're in the caution is random, because if you're leading the race, you don't know that someone's going to wreck behind you. So you kind of have to call the race realizing that you don't know what's going to happen. But it is just kind of weird for us to process, because it's just not something you see every day on the service.
Yeah, and just thinking ahead, I mean, imagine if we get to, lap 78 or even 80 and a random caution comes out, right? I mean, who knows what the fuel load is for some of these drivers, what their tire wear is. I mean, we could see some really funky things happening if we get close to the end of the race and a random caution arises.
The bit rate of the internet made that sound like an expletive, but I did hear what you said.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Having a little bit of a technical issue here tonight, just like some of the drivers.
Now, just imagine iRacing being a little bit more ahead of the game, and we had some incoming weather into all of this. How much more fun would that be? Random yellows, stages, weather. Come on. Next build, maybe. Next build, probably not. But coming through the chicane here on 1 to go, you can see them all taking different approaches to that curb there. That curb is not as deadly, and unlike real life, it is not going to move and come up and decimate the entire field. So you can take it without any worry. I don't know if it will cause any damage, though, on a consistent basis.
You mentioned rain just a minute ago, Corey, and I got to tell you, I've done a lot of project cars too, racing in my time, and that really does lead to a lot of fun strategy and really a true guessing game on road courses. Whether you take, you stay on slicks or you take rain tires, when to come in and pit. And I know they've been talking for quite some time about getting rain to iRacing, and hopefully one day it comes, and when it does, I think it's really going to spice up these events. I think early 2023. I'll tell you, the most fun with rain is when the track is about 60% dry and you put on slicks and you have to stay in like a lane and a half dry line, and if you get off that, you're absolutely toast. But if you stay in it, you're about 3 seconds faster than the field. Those are the kind of moments I'm looking forward to. But we're getting ready to basically have a 2-lap shootout to finish the stage. Remember, it'll be a rolling stage, but the points will be assessed, and we'll see how those fresh tires can get through the field.
In regards to rain, I believe it was just a couple weeks ago, iRacing released some developer kind of previews, and they showed the weather radar that's going to be available within the info tab when rain is available, and it kind of shows you where the precipitation is coming from and what the likelihood of rain is going to be. So it seems like they're making a lot of really good progress with that, and I'm excited to see how it changes things.
Kind of akin to what other sims have, Gran Turismo 7 and stuff, but we are getting ready for a restart. First one on the evening. Delaney went right about here on the last one, and he will do 2 for 2 right there, getting on that accelerator pedal, and we're going to take lap number 14, and we'll see how much chaos we have entering turn 1. So far,
yeah, they're starting to fan out at the moment, especially farther back in the pack, but
2 by
Delaney's
2.
still in the lead.
Yeah, we're not seeing Xfinity-style fanning, which I would take that to be a positive thing.
Oh, a little bit of contact towards the back, but they kept it straight.
And that accordion effect was strong. There was a few cars towards the back of the pack that just about came to a stop to give guys room. Very tight getting into turn 1, but again, these guys did a phenomenal job. I got to be honest, I did not
expect a car around.
That's the 20 machine of Devin Medeiros.
We're going to stay green. He is back on track in that A-Shock Chevrolet. So he should be all right. Let's take a look at the replay, see exactly what happened to Devin here. Now, Devin's another driver who is no stranger to road courses, so I'm curious to see. We got the 38
Pierce. Pierce was already in one incident today. Oh, he just got loose.
Got loose, yeah.
That was a really abrupt snap, though. That looked like a little bit more than getting loose. That almost looked like some crazy netcode.
It was very strange. It was on a more straight part in between the 2 turns.
See what Van de Sant can do up front. He's at least on the prior run, he was able to hang with Delaney for about a lap or 2, kind of keeping in that 0.4 of a second, half-second range, and then Delaney just kind of put the jets on. Trying to find the first guy on Freshies, if you will. It's actually going to be Giglio. All the way back there in the 16th spot. You can see the gaggle he's in, trying to get around Kevin Stone and Neil Pearson. Pearson also pitted as well. Entering turn 1 there. Giglio trying to stay on the track, trying to prevent from going wide, which is easier said than done. Adam Benefield giving him maybe a little bit of a tap there through the slow section as they're going to get by Steele going side by side.
Just a bit of additional info on Giglio. I'm not exactly sure what his current predicament is, but when I spoke to him earlier in the week, he was having a lot of wheel trouble. He was doing a lot of dirt racing throughout the month, and the force feedback when he would turn to the right started to fade out, and the wheel became very floaty and numb, as we do have a black flag car off the track there. And I mentioned to him, I'm like, of course, that has to happen right before a track where you have to turn right. So I'm not sure if he got his wheel fixed or if he's just kind of racing through it. But nonetheless, it was a bit of a unfortunate situation going into this race.
I can't imagine having wheel trouble like that, especially on a road course trying to turn right. But I am curious to see as this run continues. Yeah, definitely hit the curb there. But if these guys who took newer tires, if they'll be able to make faster lap times significantly than the drivers who stayed out.
Hear the long
I'm going to
shot.
make a prediction. I don't think the lap times are going to be that much better on fresh tires, unless iRacing has changed something significantly. Going back to these guys' race at Sonoma, there were drivers who didn't take tires the entire race, and the lap times actually only increased as the tires, decreased, got faster as the tires wore. So we'll see if it works out for drivers like the number 16, but I would have to assume tires are going to be a bit of a non-factor.
Oh, wow, very loose there. What a great save by the number 1.
And that's what I talked about, guys, with that chicane, is at least in my experience in the B car, is he's going to get past there. Paget there, full send on the binders there, managed to make that pass. The way that it's kind of set up is obviously there's that quick flick, so the weight shift is very quick. But you have to really decide how aggressive you want to be. If you're not aggressive enough, you lose time. If you're too aggressive, you risk maneuvers like that, but a good bit of driving there, certainly. Patrick Mouchet getting by Jason Taylor there. That's back Mouchet in the 10th spot. Looks like he has an IMS museum car. Last time we covered him, he had a Demolish New Hampshire Motor Speedway cars, so you can tell a little bit more favoring here at IMS.
And to your previous point, Corey, I don't claim to be a road course ace, but my number one priority was to try and minimize mistakes. Every single turn, the less mistakes you can make, and just keeping it on the track. At the end of the day, I think you'll be a more successful at the end of the race versus trying to just overdrive the car, getting too aggressive, because one little mistake on a track like this, you can go off in the sand traps, or it's real easy to spin out.
I'd certainly agree with that, because especially at this track where it's not so much fast sweeping track, it mainly is slow corners. As you can see, the brakes lighting up there, which you don't usually see in the daytime. Just shows how hot they're getting. But there's so many sections where you feel like you can gain a little bit more time if you just give it that 2% more on the gas. But that 2% on the gas is enough to loop you around if your tires are already mad at you, which is easy to do here. So definitely have to drive with that edge underneath the gas pedal and be super duper patient, and hoping that the tires don't give way, as they may or may not, based on what we've discussed.
And you really have to think of your next corner too. You might be able to take one turn really well, but if you're overdriving it, you're setting yourself up for failure in the next turn.
Just as a point, John Delaney, well, he just crossed the line, but his lap number 17 was his fastest lap of the race. So there's our point on tires.
Yeah.
Going back to your point about these guys maybe being tempted to overdrive and get a little bit over-aggressive, there's really a lot of corners on this circuit I'm noticing where the curbs are pretty flat. Obviously here in turn 1, the curb is raised. In the fast chicane, the curb is raised. And in the last corner as well, the curb is raised. But right there, look at that. That curb is flat. There's a lot of corners like that. And that is really tempting to make you want to abuse those curbs. But you got to be careful, because if you hook that grass, it is going to pull you off the track, and it's going to be difficult. I mean, we saw earlier in the race, the 07 machine, Lucas Hoytsma, he got 2 tires off the track, and it just pulled him right to the outfield, and he was lucky to even make it back on track unscathed. So one of those tracks, it really invites you to push the car hard, but you got to really have some self-control here.
Jason Taylor taking a look to the inside there. Couldn't quite see who that was, but I think that was... Looking here on my stats, that was Neil Pearson. Remember, Pearson was one of the guys who pitted. He was doing quite well beforehand, before that caution split strategy sequence. But of course, we missed the stage information, which we tend to do because it's just so easy to do. But of course, the John Delaney did get the stage points there because he was leading at the end of lap 15, and I'm not sure if anything happened. Tanner Marty around.
29.
Let's cue the replay and see what happened to him. Contact there with Robert Anderson. I think we got to go back a little bit and build a little bit more of a scene there.
I think he just entered that turn. Yep. Okay, he overshot it. Was
Anderson
trying
went
to.
Wide.
Yep. And then the angle.
And on the merge there, and he didn't just hit him. He's like, get out of my way.
Yeah, that I would not be happy if I was the 29 right now. That was that could have easily been avoided.
Yeah, I gotta think the admins are gonna look at that. That is a very clear example of an unsafe re-entry, which is something that this league has had a few instances of in the past. Drivers not really watching where they're coming back on track and causing some issues, and as a result of that happening, frequently the admins have kind of clamped down on that and been a little bit more strict about it. So I'm not an admin, I can't make a call on that. I'm just going to assume that after the race they're going to take a hard look at that.
Definitely, I would expect that to be the case, as Anderson is about to lose a spot to Mouchet here. Now this is an awkward part of the track, because obviously if you take the inside lane there, you're on the outside for this left-hander, and if you can keep the momentum up, maybe get through this long sweeper, which is another problematic corner, and then you get yourself onto the famous front straightaway here, trying to break the draft there perhaps as Anderson. We'll see what happens. Boucher used that offline to the left of the track there on the braking zone. And he's going to send it on in there, and he's going to clear using that outside.
Oh, we've got another driver. That's 65, I believe, spinning around.
Yep, Sean O'Brien.
He was exiting the pits, I believe.
Now, this is...
Nope.
Let's see.
Like he just sent it in there.
He just, he went in, and he was taking the Joker lap.
I'm going to have to give that the Sean O'Brien Jr. certified mug moment of the race. Just getting a little too hot there, Sean.
Yeah, I'm guessing that he realized he was just coming in way too hot, and he thought about the only way to avoid crashing into everyone in front of him was just to turn it straight right and spin it out. So
I wonder if
maybe a heads-up move.
I wonder if he queued up on the driver's radio and just said 4 and just told everyone to clear pace there. But luckily, no damage for him and no damage for anybody else involved. And I try to always do this, guys, is whenever the leader is kind of stinking up the show, I try to just make sure that we focus on him for at least a little bit, because we haven't talked about him, but Delaney doing Delaney things, 7 wins on the season. We talked about how Van de Sant could hang on for a couple laps, but it's been more than a couple laps, so Delaney has turned the Jets on 3 1/3 seconds, and I think we've only been green for about 7 laps. In fact, we'll switch the ticker over here to lap times on the left side of your screen, and last time by, what is that, about 7/10 of a second in the bank he had over Van de Sant, who's in clear track. It's not even like there was any obstructions.
Yeah, and it really does come down to driver. I mean, you got to look at Jonathan Delaney's lead over his teammate Matt Long. Matt's running, I'm sure, a near identical setup. Has very similar equipment, and he's running a good race. I mean, Matt Long is putting up some incredibly good lap times, but John is just kind of on another level. In fact, recently, within the last couple of weeks, Jonathan Delaney actually won a Road to Pro race. So he is kind of well on his way to the Coke Series, and right now he's kind of showing why.
Yeah, I will say it was, I used to be, not a ringer, but I used to be above average on the iRacing service on road courses and stock cars when I loaded into a B-Fix, and I thought I ran a pretty good lap, and I got beat by about 3 seconds. Let's just say it was quite deflating, and I think that's probably the gist of many of the drivers in the race now with what Delaney is doing. But we're closing in on that point within 5 to 8 laps of when those guys who did not pit will be required to come to pit road, and that's roughly the majority of the top 10 at this point. But we still have those random cautions, and remember, it's between 2 and 4 random cautions, so there's no saying if the next one is the final one. There's no saying if it's going to come at lap 75. There's no coming if it's just literally as random as you can get. And from a strategy side, as we've talked about to death here, it really just makes this so confusing for a driver.
I got to point out the pit sequence has already begun. Bryson Hicksonbaum made his way down pit road last time by, so he's really the first among those who stayed out to make that trip down pit road, and a little bit earlier than I was expecting, guys.
Yeah, there's obviously... Yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Well, I'm just going to say, we talked about the tires earlier, how it seems like the longer you stay out with the same set of tires, the faster your lap times are. I mean, I could see these drivers just taking, when it gets, maybe towards the end of a stage, break or the end of the race, maybe gambling, right? Maybe only take half a can of fuel or just 1 can, just trying to get some, track position and hope, that either you can make it or you get another caution to bunch the field back up. I think it's going to be a really unique race in that respect.
Now look here at the brake rotors. Of course, we're at the wrong part of the track to see them really glowing, but Boucher losing that spot on Neil Pearson there. That is for 6th and 7th. But yeah, definitely picks up off first on the pit sequence here. Actually, Mark Paget in the 8, he was the top 5 car. He is going to come down, and actually Alex Van de Sant. So first blood being drawn up here in the top 5.
Gotta wonder if maybe Bryson didn't kind of kickstart that. Some of these guys saw Bryson disappear from their mirror, saw him fade out of the relative, and thought, well, maybe he knows something we don't. We're going to come in a little bit early, too.
But in terms of lap times, Delaney, I can say he is the only driver. Actually, no, let me take that back. Van de Sant and Delaney, the only drivers this evening. Actually, I'll take that back again. 3 drivers this evening have run in the 27-second bracket. Most everybody else is out of that, but Delaney's best lap of 127.113. And the next best lap is about 3 or 4 tenths slower than that. So he's definitely has it in the bank here. It'll be interesting to see how it does shake out in regards to the strategy game, as I think we have our first lap car. That's Ralph Hutchison. He has been out for 8 laps, so this might actually be him going down on pure pace.
Well, and Hutchinson, I don't know if you noticed, but on the end of your screen, he, I think, took the alternate route, must have overshot turn number 12, and very loose.
Yeah, he got the left sides there in the dirt, and naturally that is not a favorable way to get around any racetrack, so he is going to go 1 lap down. He is in the free pass position. Usually we don't have to talk about free passes on road courses, but we do this evening, so he's going to hope that random caution is right around the corner.
Yeah, I believe it was lap 11 when that first random caution came out, so we're already past the amount of time that had lapsed for the first one.
I want to mention too, lap traffic is going to be a reoccurring thing tonight, I believe. We got a pretty good field. Going into tonight, I, as well as a few other drivers, were kind of expecting a smaller field. This is a very difficult track, and a lot of guys in the league that are either already locked in or maybe just feel confident in points. We're kind of talking like they might not show up. So I know drivers like Damaris was really hoping that you could get a thin field so that he could stay in the top 25 in points, keep that locked in position with his win there at Atlanta. But no, we got 30 cars for Indianapolis Road, which is pretty impressive, but it's also going to make things really difficult for the leader as they're trying to navigate lap traffic. And if you're Ralph Hutchison, it's not any easier. You have to make sure you stay in that lucky dog position so you can get back on the lead lap, because here at a road course, I don't think you're getting that lap back the old-fashioned way.
You're going to have to depend on a wave around, which is difficult to do because you're dependent on what everybody else is going to do. Or B, you have to get the free pass, and the free pass is going to be changing lap after lap as different guys make pit stops. As for example, Brandon Pierce is now the free pass recipient, and Hutchison, as at least what I can see, guys, he's taking it behind the wall.
Yeah, he seemed to be struggling out there. I don't know if he just maybe missed the setup for the race, or having some other kind of problem.
Not a road course guy will probably.
Well, also that I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt, but regardless, he was, a little bit off course and very loose.
Yeah, you maybe even speak more to that than us, Andre, about Hutchison on the road courses. He's been around a lot longer than us.
Hutchison, he's one of those drivers. He's pretty good everywhere. I think in this particular case, he might have just missed the setup. And sometimes when a car is that evil to drive, you just throw your hands up and say, all right, I've had enough fun for one night. And I think that might be what happened with Ralph. But it is a little bit surprising. Ralph is a lot of things, but to see him struggle that much, that's kind of that's a rarity.
Reminds me of one time Dale Jr. in the Budweiser days. I can't remember if it was at Las Vegas or where, but so we got a great battle here in turn number 12. Looking to the inside. I think he might have it. Well, still battling. But as they still battle on the front stretch, yeah, he was so fed up with the setup of his car, just pulled in the garage and said, "You've got to fix it. I'm not going back out until you do."
See if you can see that rotor glow here as we clip the wall here with Benefiel, but you can really see that rotor on Benefiel. But did you say that story was Earnhardt there, Tyler?
He was Dale Jr.
Oh, well.
I think during the Budweiser days, it may have been Las Vegas in the early mid 2000s.
I can see that being a Kyle Busch thing. I think he's actually done that before, where he's had a damaged car and it was good enough to continue, and he's like, nope, just not driving it. I'm done.
Well, that was Texas, I believe, probably the year before Dale Jr. essentially took his ride. That there was a wreck, and Kyle had already left the track. Didn't think the crew could put the car back together to get it back out. Dale Jr. was also out of the race, hopped in Kyle Busch's car, and finished the race.
Yeah, Kyle Busch had quite the history with Hendrick. My favorite story from back in those days was Jeff Gordon had passed Kyle Busch on the straightaway, and it was pretty clear it wasn't that Jeff had carried more momentum through the corner that just kind of transferred into the straightaway as Mouch goes off track there. It was kind of just a horsepower differential, and it was pretty clear to see. And Kyle Busch lit up their team radio. He said, well, it's clear to see who Mr. H likes more. And that was one of the final straws with Rick Hendrick, because you don't talk like that about Rick Hendrick. He treats his drivers with a lot of respect, and I think he expects it in return. And that was one of those things that did not sit well with the team.
And, well, per that logic, I guess he really didn't like Jeff Gordon towards the end of his career then, because Johnson basically took all of his fame away. So but that's Kyle Busch. He can blame everybody in the world, but he can't blame himself. Shots fired, I suppose. But we do have some more pit stops going on. Patrick Mouchet in the 46, Sean O'Brien Jr. coming to pit road. John Delaney actually just exited the pits, so we kind of missed that whole sequence there. So now Neil Pearson has inherited the lead. He's 15 laps in to his stint right now, so he does have the opportunity to go roughly 12 more laps around the circuit, presumably, before he's going to have a pit stop. But second place is Derek Heitman, which I don't think I've seen that name before, Andre, so I'm assuming he's a new guy to lead, maybe a road course ringer, but having a great run here, second, and even though it's on a strategy at the moment, he's been top 5 the vast majority of this event.
Yeah, I believe Derek is a relatively new face. I'm not sure if this is his first lead start, not 100% sure, but I do know that he is filling in for Dustin Holland at number 1 Jimmy Strong Chevrolet, and doing a pretty good job of it here in P2. And I'll tell you what,
we got a caution, guys.
Oh, I was just gonna say, these guys are hoping for a caution, and there it is.
And now it's actually going to work out rather interesting, and it's going to benefit those who just pitted, because the nature of road courses is you want to pit right before the caution comes out. That way you have the benefit of staying on the track while everybody else has to get service. So for Delaney, that's actually going to work out fabulously. Jason Baker, the only driver 1 lap down, so he should get the free pass on the assumption he doesn't go off track, which is a very difficult thing to promise on a road course, but I think he'll be okay with that. But everybody is assembling behind the pace car on the back straightaway.
And we're going to have another situation where we go green and we're approaching the end of the stage. So what was it? Lap 35, I believe, is the end of second stage, if I remember correctly. And I'd say lap 33?
35.
Yeah, but I'd say we'll probably go green. Lap 32,
yeah,
33?
33, yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll be another shootout, and you got to think it's playing into some of these guys' strategy. What are they going to do? Are they going to stay out and try to maybe win the stage and stretch their fuel, or do they come down pit road and just kind of stick with their offbeat strategy? Because really, we have a huge split here, guys. We got a lot of guys that are off sequence, and it's just going to continue to shuffle the field up.
Well, again, too, these guys might just top off, get the fuel they need. Don't take tires because they probably don't need it, and set themselves up better for the second half of the race. You just don't know. There's so many strategies and things these guys could do, based off of winning the race, trying to win the stage, and also just guessing on when the next caution is going to come.
It's funny. You would think tires not being a factor would make strategy easier to figure out, but it really seems like it's making things more difficult for these guys.
Yeah, I think from a fuel perspective, as there goes our top 2 down pit road, as we obviously would expect. We are at a number that I cannot easily compute in my head. What is it, 44 to go? 54 to go? I can't do math like that, but I think either way it's going to be a one-stop race from here. So we may or may not have 2 more cautions. We need 1 more pit stop, so there's going to be a lot of ways to shuffle this up. And Robert Anderson staying on the track. And my stint graphic is broken, but I'm trying to figure out when he's been on the track for 29 laps. So, wow, presumably that would be the end of a fuel load there. But he is staying on the track, so perhaps He just wanted the lap led? Question mark, maybe? But behind him is Lucas Hoytsma, 17 laps, Giglio, 17 laps, and of course Delaney, who just pitted. But let's try to grab... See if I can talk to maybe Lucas Hoytsma. I think we can grab him from LMM. I'll grab him very quickly here. And let's have a brief chat with him. Lucas, it's Corey up in the booth. You got me?
I got you.
All right, so on the strategy call right now, you're P2, and we're just talking about in the booth how probably annoyingly difficult and confusing this race is to call with pit strategy. How are you feeling between that, with all the random cautions and the stages and such?
Well, I'm liking the thought of stage points here, so that's half the call right now. But I'm thinking we get 2 cautions already in 29 laps. I think we'll hit that incident limit again somewhere in these last 50. So I'm going to hope for that, because the fuel strategy is looking a little tight, I'll be honest.
Yeah, so you have that. We, based on what I was told, it's between 2 and 4 random cautions. So for all we know, this is the last one. Just to throw a wrench into things. But from the perspective of just being a road racer and coming to a new refresh of this update on short notice, how are you taking the Indy, and how's the car this evening?
The car feels all right. I think I got top 10 speed. Yeah, this track's a lot of fun. I'm having a decent time with it. I didn't get much practice in beforehand, so a little bit of a wake-up call in those first few laps, but I'm feeling good. I'm liking this, and I'm trying to hold second here, maybe get first for this stage.
All right, you got 4 or 5 laps to do that. You got a fiery John Delaney right behind you, so we'll let you get back to it, man. Good luck, and we'll see what happens to the rest of the race.
Thanks, sir. See ya.
That is Hoytsma, so we will see what the pace car offers us here. I think we may have 1 to go. But either way, we are going to step aside for the first side-by-side of the race, and we'll be back with you for the restart. So stay with us. We'll be right back. And we're back here on PTR TV after a brief little commercial break here. Race number 22 of the 100% Cup Series here from the revamped and updated Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We just had our second quote-unquote random yellow of the race. just before our stage break, which will be at lap number 35. Our stage break will not actually be a break, rather just a green flag sequence with the points being assessed. So some different guys, different strategies going on, and Robert Anderson will be in command of the field.
And as we were talking during the break, guys, Anderson did stay out, so he, I guess, thinks he can make it to the end of the stage with that fuel load. Be curious to see if he can actually stretch it that far.
Yeah, caution laps are really valuable for saving fuel at road courses. I mean, you're off the throttle so much and the pace laps are so long. You can save a good lap or two worth of fuel, and we were kind of estimating low 30s for a fuel run, and I can see where he's probably just trying to get some stage points. He did come into this series, I believe, after the beginning of the season, so a little bit behind on points, and if he's got a gamble to maybe get a stage win or even just some decent stage points, I could see it happening, but he's going to have to be careful, and I would assume that he's going to bring that thing down pit road the second the stage does end. We got a bit of a bottleneck on this initial green flag start. Lucas Hoytsma is going to be up top, but the number 11 will have the preferred line getting down into the apex of turn 1. Who's going to outbrake who? Anderson down on the bottom. Hoytsma gets the advantage for just a moment, but down to the apex. The 11's going to lock it up.
Watch it up, yeah.
No contact. Wow.
And then John Delaney just behind that. Remember, he's the fastest guy on track. He was the first to pit. He is going to the inside of Blake Giglio, who's doing this race without force feedback, which is basically doing it blind, essentially. But doing a fabulous job there. And Hoytsma will pull out to about a half-second lead. 96 of Vandesant. He's going to just half loop it there on the back straightaway. Going to go from a 4th to probably 25th after that. Let's take a quick look. It was completely self-instigated there. He just went through that chicane, and it just broke loose at about 75% corner exit there.
We've seen that a couple of times. That transition with the weight, as you mentioned before, just upsets these cars, and every once in a while you just lose the handle of it.
Well, you know, these next-gen cars, for the first time in NASCAR's history, pretty much have independent rear suspension. And I gotta wonder, with how late these spins are coming out of the chicane, maybe there's something going on with the rebound of the shocks, where once they kind of unload and settle in, it shifts the weight of the car and just sends you for a ride.
Yeah, I can certainly see that, and even on the ovals, I mean, at Pocono, I mean, of course, we didn't cover the race, but just watching it in the real world and participating in some of the races, it's about that 75-80% distance as Anderson going to pit here on lap number... Well, before the stage.
Lap 32.
Yeah, so he in that tag ride.
Another driver farther back in the field, I think, had an incident coming off of the last turn. Not sure what happened there. But, you know, talking about the suspension, I mean, we've noticed, and the drivers have talked about it in real life, and I think on iRacing too, how it is much more difficult to correct these cars with that, independent suspension and just the way that it is with the steering, that sometimes you just can't save it like you could with the old cars.
Yeah, it's that rack and pinion. We have an entirely different steering box, the rack and pinion steering versus the more conventional steering that has been in these cars for years, where they've still talked about that there's still actual problems with it, and drivers aren't getting the feel in the issue. They're still having issues with it, so I think there's still things to work out as Hoytsma hopping the curb here through the 11, 12, 13 complex, and he does have some serious company there in the form of John Delaney heading back onto the front straightaway here, and we'll see if Delaney takes a dive into turn 1.
Big surge there coming off the turn in the draft right now. I think he's going to peek to the inside here just a moment. Yep, looking to the inside. Going to try to outbrake him.
And I don't think there's going to be too much contest there.
Going to give him plenty of room, but he fights back. He does get back to the lead. Now, I think he might just be delaying the inevitable. That number 6 is flying right now, and in the last portion of the track, Lucas was taking some really defensive lines, and at a road course, if you're taking lines that are too defensive, you're just kind of slowing yourself down as well as the guy behind you. So here we go. Number 6 is going to get down to that preferred bottom lane, headed into the next corner, but he's not going to need it because he's actually going to clear himself before he gets to the turn. Jonathan Delaney back out front, and it's going to put Lucas Hoytsma there in second. A valiant effort at keeping the lead. And of course, Blake Giglio there in third, fighting a force feedback issue, still running on the podium. And Matt Long working his way back towards the front as well there in fourth.
I just got to say, that was a power move by Delaney. Essentially passed him on the outside coming off the turn. You don't see that very often.
Yeah, he got such a good run there. And as I said, it kind of just takes the guts. It takes those brass cojones there to really get through and use that curb the right way. And he just used all of that real estate to the outside of the track and was able to take advantage of it. I think something may have happened to the aid of Mark Padgett there. Some front-end damage to the front of that cat machine, but still running strong at about the 17th position. Trying to find other battles on track right now. That's Neil Pearson closing in on Alex Princeton. I don't think we've talked about Alex Princeton once this evening in that number 9 machine. He's running in 6th, soon to be 7th, as Pearson is going to go hard on the binders into turn number 1. That Caribou Coffee number 9 Camaro. I do need some coffee. I'm just about out, so if it's good, maybe I'll give it a shot. But back to 7th for Princeton. Caribou. Caribous are out of Maine, and I do like Maine, so if that's actually Maine coffee, I will check that out.
Yeah, good old Alex Princeton. I don't think I've ever seen him drive a car that wasn't coffee related. He's had a few different brands of coffee, and I gotta say, I approve. I'm a big coffee guy, so that's pretty neat to see. And I also want to point out that Pearson has been having just about a career night tonight. I mean, he's been inside the top 5 pretty much all night long. This is the first time we've seen him really outside of the top 5 due to this strategy kind of throwing him out of whack, but he's been putting up some really good lap times in that 62 and really consistent too. We've not really seen him fighting the handling of that machine, just having a pretty solid run so far.
Caribou Coffee seems to be a Minnesota heavy coffee shop, kind of what a Dunkin' would be here in the Northeast. Starbucks would be global. It's heavy in the Minnesota area, so unfortunately for me as in the Northeast, can't have it. But you can buy coffee to go, so take that for what it's worth. Either way, coffee aside. And lap number 35. So this is actually the stage lap, guys. We'll try to actually make note of it. And one thing to make note of is Hoytsma hasn't gone anywhere. It's been 2 or 3 laps, and he's still within 3/4 of a second. Maybe he's actually learning something, watching how Delaney's getting around this circuit, how he's taking some of these different corners and putting it in the bank and helping himself out.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice just to be able to follow someone that's really got a fast pace, in particular on a road course, and you can try to follow their line, look at their braking points. I mean, not everyone's setup is the same, but maybe I need to brake a little bit earlier here, brake a little bit later there. Get the apex a little bit differently. There's a lot to be learned throughout this race.
And road courses are so much about muscle memory and just having that twitch reflex when it comes to getting in and out of the corners. And as they race and they turn more and more laps tonight, I think all these drivers are going to get a better feel for the track. Even if they've practiced a lot beforehand, just running this full-length race is still going to hone in those skills. And for Lucas Hoytsma, I think he's been getting faster all night. And now that he is following John Delaney, getting a good look at the lines that he's running, that's just icing on the cake, helping him out even more. And that's kind of the... near contact there. The 29 and the 65, they're going to stay apart. I'll tell you what, that 29 has been in the thick of it tonight. He has not been able to get away from some of these guys.
This is just
still battling.
Yeah, this is just outside of the stage too, as Benefiel will get the last points for this stage number 2. So now we are just racing to the checkers here. But that is Marty to the inside of O'Brien. Van de Sant trying to recover from his spin. Hard on the binders here. You can see the brakes lighting up again, and looks like Marty will get it. Van de Sant's going to try to use that outside here, set himself up on the preferred groove here for the right-hander. He might try to go 2 for 1 and try to take advantage of Marty here heading into the chicane.
Man, a little bit of smoke there as well going through the turn.
A little contact there.
Ooh.
At least it looked it from the long shot, and that slowed up Van de Sant. Here goes Sean O'Brien Jr. to that outside lane. From the chopper cam here heading into 7.
Yeah, he's definitely trying to drive it in deep. We'll see if he can hold it. Oh, almost contact. I don't know how they didn't wreck there, guys.
Tell you what, these guys are making it fun. This is one whale of a battle. Sean O'Brien Jr. doing a great job holding his own against kind of a road course ringer here. And I got to give props to Van de Sant as well. It's easy to lose your patience when you're kind of boxed in between 3 or 4 cars and you're just a little bit quicker, but he's keeping a level head, and these guys around him are doing a great job.
Whoa, Van de Sant on those brakes hard. closes
Gonna be too
right
wide
in,
again.
and I think that just scared the living daylights out of Marty, and he just said, "Go! I want nothing of it." Someone breaking into the pits there. That's who is that? That's the 70 of Michael Christopher. So that's just after the stage. So, and Lucas Hoytsma in the pits. So strategy calls again as Delaney's out to 7 seconds nearly over now Matt Long. And just taking a look here, it looks like Delaney, Long, they've been out for roughly 10 laps. Pearson 8, Hixenbaugh 15, so most everybody on that same sequence. Alex Princeton 25 laps out in that 7th spot, so he will be the top 10 coming into the pits as he's under fire from Benefiel in that 83.
Benefiel, a very aggressive driver, but a clean driver. He knows when to push the limits, and he's a guy who knows the competition. You know, if he needs to give somebody room, he's going to do it. And if he knows that somebody can take a higher level of aggression, that's what he's going to dole out. And that's what makes him such a fierce competitor, is just his knowledge of everybody that he's around and knowing exactly what their limits are. And it helps him carve through the field. And he's just one of those drivers. He can start in the back, and just throughout the race, you're going to see him slowly get further and further forward through the grid. Not necessarily a road course ringer. Of course, back in the Circuit of the Americas, he did get disqualified when he ran off track just a few too many times and hit the incident limit. But maybe a bit of a learning experience, because we're 38 laps in. He's still here. No incident limit in sight, and he is getting faster.
That's actually a point that I think I've completely just almost forgot about, is we do have a 15 incident limit here across the series, and I'm assuming that's still the same here on this circuit. I don't know if it's been amended at all, but 15 incidents, it's not easy to get that here because there's not too many egregious off tracks, but it is definitely possible if you do have enough screw ups. Of course, a car contact here and there isn't going to help. As that's Giglio trying to recover after that pit stop, getting by Patrick McRae, one of our YouTube favorites in that Twisted T Camaro.
Well, and we've seen a few of these drivers already have multiple incidents where, whether it was their fault or others, maybe a little bit of both, you know, they had contact, and I don't know what their incident points are at the moment, but again, if you also just, you know, drive off in the grass, that's going to give you at least 1x, I believe. So yeah, it's not super easy to get to that 15 mark, but then again, it's not that hard as well.
We had the camera momentarily kind of honed in on Wayne Grassi in the number 7 machine, having some internet issues there, guys. He was blinking a lot, and that was kind of concerning because he disappeared going into turn 1, which is a heavy braking zone. Hopefully that gets sorted out for him, because that could be a bit of a risk here.
Yeah, that's exactly why I stopped showing him, because he kept going in and out, but definitely seeing that in the case. And I don't think we brought up the weather conditions. I know they're not really that important in the grand scheme of things, but just have the transparency available. 79 in the air, 107 track temp, so I'm sure it probably was a couple degrees higher. You can see the wind here. Usually we don't talk about the wind very often, but you can see the flags in various places here. We'll go back to the speed shot here. You can look on the top of the grandstands here. You can see those flags are at that northwest direction, kind of pointed in towards the infield, so that may be causing some of the handling issues, because 15-mile-an-hour winds is nothing to completely ignore.
Yeah, that'll definitely give you a bit of a boost going down the straightaway if it's a tailwind, which it is right now. And then, of course, coming back down the back straightaway, that's a headwind, so that's going to slow you down a little bit. Something you might want to pay attention to as a driver, but it's not like we're playing golf out here. They're probably not too focused on it.
Yeah, I think the only time I ever really pay attention to wind is if I know I have a really, really good car and I'm qualifying. Then I would pay attention to it. And kind of on the older tire model that was a little bit more sensitive to temperature, I would genuinely look up at the sky and see if there was a cloud coming in the next 5 minutes or so, because if there was, I would wait till the very last second. But other than that, weather conditions haven't been too big of a deal for me. Maybe when rain comes, as we talked about earlier, that will change. But other than that, guys, I don't see too much going on. I think at least for the moment, everybody is pretty much in their spot that they will be in, and just waiting for that next pit cycle and or the next caution, whatever comes first.
Yeah, speaking of the wind, I think probably the one series I think it does play a little bit of a role is the 87s. When you're at Daytona or Talladega, you get a really big wind gust, and those cars already go really fast down the straights, and with the draft and the wind, especially if it's a tailwind or a headwind, that can definitely affect the performance of the cars. But yeah, here on a road course, I wouldn't be too worried about it.
We got Pearson moving up into P2. We just got around Matt Long, and he's only about 10 seconds back from the leader. I don't think he's running faster than Delaney, but definitely showing himself to be very likely the second quickest car on track, which is nothing to scoff at. He's been having a really good night. And, we're about halfway through this race, so he's got to keep this consistency up, but it's been a good start.
Delaney pushing double figures here. You can see on the left side of the screen on the live telemetry, he is at now 10 seconds up. We can report that we have 3 retirees. We heard Chad Edwards having connectivity, well, rather headset issues. Ralph Hutcherson, I think, just having everything issues tonight. And then Devin Medeiros, he did have a spinner, I believe. I don't know if something more catastrophic happened, but 2 guys off the lead lap, Michael Christopher and Dylan Kritz in the 34 machine. Again, we have our, we'll bring up our race details one more time. We have the open setups, of course, the 2 to 4 random cautions. We have had 2. Our stages have already been eclipsed, but we may or may not have 2 more cautions. Again, the range is available. It's the parameters were set by admin that randomly thrown cautions will occur between 2 and 4, or if enough guys have incidents, it will probably. So there's a lot of different factors involved, and we might be all done. We might have 1 more. We might have 2 more. Who knows? There might even be 3 more if we have 2 random cautions and an incident caution. So many things up in the air, well beyond the scope of what normally happens on a road course, and we're just at halfway down.
Yeah, now is when it gets fun because there is absolutely no certainty. When the race started, we knew there was going to be 2 cautions, and that's all we knew. Well, that has come to fruition. We got our 2 cautions, and now we could go green to the end, or we could have up to 3 more cautions, like you said. So these guys, I think at that point, do you even bother trying to figure out a strategy, or do you just kind of play it by ear?
I think you just, at this point, you make a strategy based on this race going green, and if you have to be dynamic in the moment, you have to be dynamic in the moment. But I think unless you actually have a spotter, some of these drivers do have active, like live teams watching the race with them. Unless you have that, I think you just have to call it as a green flag race and think on the fly.
And just think about your fuel too. That's the one thing I would say is the wild card in all this. And depending on when these guys are coming into pit and with the tire situation, gotta consider getting in and out of pit road as fast as possible. And again, the likelihood of having this extended going into overtime is not very likely, but with the randomizer, there's always the chance lap 81 we get a caution.
Indeed the case, and we do have to do a little channel maintenance here. I don't think I did it earlier on, but if you are new, because the majority of viewers on broadcasts are actually not subscribed, so if you haven't subscribed, please just hit that little notification bell for us there, and hit that subscription button on our goal to hit 1,000 here. But I think right now will probably be as good a time of ever, guys, to do our through the field. So we'll go ahead before the next pit sequence happens, which will probably happen while we're doing it, but let's go ahead and try anyways. John Delaney, our pole sitter, has led the most laps and is the fastest car by far. He's actually bested his best lap, and now he's in the 26s, so there, let him go. Matt Long is in second, having a good solid run. Neil Pearson, as I think you alluded to, Andre, having a career day in third. Bryson Hicksabaugh, no slouch, he's running in fourth. Derek Heitman, one of the relative newcomers, subbing for Dustin Hall, he is in fifth. Patrick Mouchet, a solid run in sixth. Alex Van de Sant recovering from that spin in seventh. Adam Benefiel in eighth. And then we have Tanner Marty and Alex Princeton rounding out your top 10. We have Sean O'Brien in 11th, Kyle Ammon in 12th, Brandon Pierce in 13th, Jason Taylor in 14th, Mark Padgett in 15th, Jason Baker in 16th, Blake Giglio in 17th, Carl Dodson in 18th, Lucas Hoitzman in 19th, and then to finish out our top 20, we have league admin Kevin Steele having a modest run this evening.
And I'll tell you, Kevin, he did not have a whole lot of time to practice going into this race. So to be in the top 20 and to keep that car clean with very minimal knowledge going into this race, that's a pretty impressive run. This is a race that, like I said, a lot of these guys were putting extra practice time into, and that's just a luxury that was not afforded to Kevin due to work hours and things like that. So he's kind of coming in blind, but he's doing the best with what he's got.
That's all you can do. Is, you know, some guys have, you know, more time on their hands. They can practice 7 days a week. Other guys, kind of like myself, I'm lucky to get on the service once or twice a week. So sometimes my league pre-race practice ends up being the only practice I have. So that is the case for some of these guys. We just got to make the most of it. As Van de Sant will get by Mouchet there, and saw some smoke there on the long shot. That may have been between Pierce and rather Pearson and Long, as they are in that heated battle for the second spot.
Yeah, that's a great battle between those two. I'm just looking throughout the rest of the field, and I mean, it's just kind of amazing right now. Our 15th driver, Paget, is about 51 seconds behind our leader, so definitely a lot of cars spread out throughout the whole circuit. And again, that part of that's strategy, but it just goes to show you the different wavelengths some of these drivers are on. And oh, we got a driver off in the grass coming off the turn.
Let's see who that was. I think that was
Princeton, maybe?
Yeah, it was a white car. So just try to find out here on the backside. It looks like it may have been Preston McRae, but we'll have to let that slide for now. Nothing of overly significance there.
I noticed that the 59 was, again, one of those drivers who seemed to take the alternate route over turn 12. So a lot of drivers seem to be overshooting that turn for various reasons.
Yeah, I think it actually was Tracy in 33. My telemetry saying that he may have spun. So may have been him. He's not having the best day. He is the last car remaining on track in the 29th position, about to have Alex Van de Sant in that 96 get by, and it's going to go a little bit wide. That's the line I was running in the Xfinity race I did yesterday, is going a little bit too wide, but as long as you keep it on the track, that is ultimately all that matters. Is these guys will chug on. And once again, race number 22. Now, we do kind of have to be bluntly transparent. We will be with you guys next week here on PTR TV covering the Michigan race. I know it'll be myself and Evan. Andre, I don't know if you're, of course, free to join us if you have the time to do so. And we are working on filling some commentary roles for the rest of the season. PTR TV is kind of signing out after Michigan, so if anybody watching this has any commentary experience or any interest in learning such, feel free to get in touch with League Admins here. They are looking for some commentary to help out with Andre on the 3-wide side, because otherwise there may or may not be some issues with the rest of the season. So any interest, please get in touch.
I mentioned earlier that Pearson was kind of making himself the very clear second quickest car, but I don't know, man. Matt Long definitely put up a good fight, getting back into second for a while and then now falling back to third. But these two have just kind of been going back and forth, trading off lap times, and it was a good battle earlier, a little bit of separation now, but Matt Long's not giving up, and it's been a very long green flag run, one of the longer ones we've had so far tonight. And, that's kind of leading to this separation you pointed out there, Corey. And it's interesting to see, because these guys have had kind of a moment to breathe. They've had these interruptions before, and now, well, they may be looking at a green flag run to the end. So it's going to be a bit of a endurance event from here on out, as we do have a bit of a pit stop going on here, and that is Princeton in the number 9 Caribou Coffee Machine. And am I crazy, or was that a lot of smoke?
That was a lot of smoke. I don't know where that came from, but somebody had to have been locking up in front of him.
Yeah, our leader is about to get into some lap traffic, but it's not slow lap traffic. It is like Hoytsma and who else is in front of him right there? Robert Anderson and Wayne Grassi. We've had shown him have some issues, but Lucas Hoytsma definitely not a slouch this evening. So if indeed the leader does get to him, I don't think he's not going to be aggressive with him, but he's not going to roll over and play dead.
Yeah, I mean, really, John's coming up on 3 pretty aggressive drivers. Wayne Grassy took a bit of a break from the league. I know he was here for the inaugural season there in 2020. He raced a little bit in 2021, and now just within the last few weeks he's come back. But I remember he was a pretty aggressive driver, and Lucas is, he's fast, and he knows he's fast. He's, like you said, not going to roll over and play dead. And I don't know a whole lot about Anderson. Again, he's kind of a newcomer to the league, but from what we've seen tonight, he is definitely not somebody who is going to say, oh, well, just go on by. No, he's going to put up a fight if he can. So I think our leader is going to have his hands full.
Well, and again, if this were a normal road race on iRacing, and as they're looking outside, looking to the inside for our leader as he goes right on by. Oh my goodness, completely overshot it. Turn number 12 actually just turned right around and got back on. I was ready to say that was relatively easy for him. That was very uncharacteristic for Delaney. But regardless, these drivers aren't going to roll over as much because a caution could randomly come out, as we've talked about before. And they could either be a wave around car or get the lucky dog or just stay on the lead lap. And that can be very important for the rest of the race.
Tell you what, that was a risky move by John Delaney to just straight up pull a U-turn and get back on the track. iRacing is pretty stringent when it comes to driving backwards, and I don't know what it would consider driving backwards here at this road course, but generally it only permits a few feet of backwards driving before you are just ripped out of the session, kicking and screaming. So a bit of a close moment there for John, but he's back on track. I believe he still has the lead over Pearson, 11 seconds according to our timing and scoring. So a bit of a mistake, but he's all right.
Yeah, well, I will say it was actually it was a high IQ move, but because if you know you can't make the corner and there is a runoff, your best bet is to take it. But I definitely agree, as Wayne Grassy there is slowing Delaney up, but the quick maneuver back onto the track, a race control issue at some facilities, but all in all, it only cost about 4 seconds on the stopwatch, and trying to get through Anderson here to clear this remaining lap traffic. That would give us 19 drivers on the lead lap if he is able to get by the Tide Ride. Funnily enough, the Tide Ride, Ricky Rudd was actually he was actually shown in a picture at a racetrack, I think for the first time since 2007, since he retired. It was the first time they've actually shown him and seen him at a NASCAR event, as they had the NASCAR Brickyard and Indy 500 winners picture today.
Yeah, I know Ricky Rudd had said that it's really difficult for him, and I know this applies to some other drivers as well, to show up at the racetrack when they're no longer racing. So it's good to see Ricky Rudd back out here, though. It's been quite some time, as you said.
Then you have guys like Mark Martin, who you ask him, do you want to drive a car? Nope. Don't care. Don't want to. Like, they tried to get Mark Martin to do SRX, and he had absolutely not the foggiest bit of interest in it.
Yeah, that did kind of surprise me that he didn't run SRX, but Mark had a long career. I think he did more driving than most of the drivers in the field combined. And I think at a certain point, you get old enough, you got enough money, and I think you just had enough of racing. You want to experience other aspects of life. And for Mark, I know he's doing a whole lot of things, just kind of traveling and doing things with his wife. And I think he's living the high life right now. I think he's having a good time.
And he stays up with the sport, I know, but I think he had a comment a while back that, he used to be a great race car driver, but, with age and it's just the time, it just happens to any athlete, or, as the older you get, you're not quite as competitive as you were before. And I just don't think he wants to hop back in a car when he just knows that he just doesn't have quite the same speed as he used to.
But it is interesting. Some drivers, they retire and they just fall off the face of the earth. You never hear about them. I mean, Jimmy Spencer, nowadays he's running a junkyard in Pennsylvania. You don't ever hear anything from him. But other drivers, they kind of stick around. They show up at the track. They serve various different roles with their teams or whatever. And sometimes it's surprising which way drivers go and what they do after they retire.
Sterling Marlin, for example, 2002, nearly won the championship before he got side of an injury. He's actually come down with Parkinson's disease. Most recently had brain surgery to try to kind of cure that and limit some of the symptoms. But he's still running and quite successful in super late models at Nashville Fairgrounds. So kind of a point, and you would never know because he's not really public anymore.
Yeah, very impressive. He's able to still race with all the health issues that he's had. But look at somebody like Morgan Shepherd. I mean, I know Morgan hasn't been competitive for probably the last 20 plus years, but
40 years maybe.
I mean, I think his last one was what, in 1992, 93 at Atlanta. I think it was 93 at Atlanta. You can fact check me on that later, but
nope, gonna do it right now.
I think he has 3 Cup wins at Atlanta, and his first one was at Martinsville. Maybe 1980.
Cue the duck, as BP would say. The stat duck, the Geico. No, not Geico's not a duck. Aflac, right? That's a duck.
Yes.
Yes.
Cup career, first win 1981 at Martinsville. Last win 1993 Motorcraft Quality Parts 500 at Atlanta. So
Tyler knows his stuff.
and his last race was the 2014 Loudon race, which I'm pretty sure he wrecked Joey Logano as like a 15 lap down car, because I was actually at that race and it was quite hysterical. But
I tell you, Morgan, he's one of those drivers that I don't think anybody cares if he's competitive. I think a lot of the guys in the garage are just happy to have him around when he is there. I mean, he's such a, I don't know if either of you have ever met him. He is such a great guy to talk to. I met him at Watkins Glen one year. He was in the garage area sitting underneath a tree, and I went up, got a picture with him, and before I knew it, I was sitting there and he was telling me his entire life story. I think we sat there for about 35 minutes.
Wow.
And I was just listening to him talk, and it was awesome. Great guy.
Well, didn't he, not to listen to the Morgan Shepherd show, but I think a few years back, didn't he chase down somebody who robbed a lady,
Yes,
or robbed a store and basically tackled him until the police arrived? I mean, that's pretty crazy.
I saw a video.
Yeah, he was already up there in age when he did that, but it was, I think somebody snatched somebody's purse, and he tackled him right there in the convenience store aisle, and he held him there.
I saw a video of him. I think it was a rain delay at, I don't remember what track it was. He was just cruising along on his rollerblades, and he absolutely face planted and just took it like a champ. I don't remember where it was, but it was like a NASCAR funny videos compilation. He's a good character.
Oh, driver very slow there, heading into the S's. Not sure what happened.
I believe he was off track there, got a little bit sideways and had to rejoin, as we do have Bryson Nixonbach coming down pit road here on lap 52.
To get back to action, I have a stint graphic, and for some reason, just deciding it's just not feeling it today. But most of the guys in the top 8 right now have been out for the better part of about 25 laps. So that would leave roughly 5 more laps before they pit. So that would be 57, 58. That puts them 58. Yeah, that puts them in distance where they can make the end of the race. So one more stop, but. I think this is probably the longest stretch of time, guys, since we've had a random yellow, a fun yellow, if you want to use SRX terminology. So maybe we're done, maybe we're not. Again, the question's still in the air, but the strategies are coming regardless of such.
Yeah, there comes a time where the fuel tank is going to force your hand. There's only so far you can go and so much you can do. And it's like you said, Corey, I think these guys just kind of have to plan for it to stay green. And if caution throws a wrench in that, that's racing. But there's just no way to predict what exactly is going to happen.
We've seen even the best drivers tonight make some mistakes. Delaney completely overshooting turn 12, and I know that mental fatigue in a 100% race like this, it's going to be, I think, more and more common for these drivers to start missing their marks. I mean, even with all the lap times they have, just the pure mental exhaustion that these drivers face.
Focusing on Ammon, Paget, and Pierce. I do want to go back here. Let me turn this the ticker off for a moment. I just want to go back to the point standings. We didn't really get to cover it too in depth as Brandon Pierce comes down pit road here. This is our points after Pocono, and I want to focus on the bubble spots. We've talked about Alex Princeton quite a bit, Kyle Ammon, Bobby Anderson, Brandon Pierce, Sean O'Brien. All these guys right on that bubble. You can see Kevin Steele has a fair amount of leeway right there. And Ammon and Pierce, they were just running right next to each other. Alex Princeton's been in the better part of the top 10. So these guys are really running it down as far as possible, which, you know, they're going to be running to the last race. But that makes it very difficult on strategy. Do you want to play the same strategy those guys that you're fighting with, or do you want to get off strategy and just risk that it might backfire on you?
I think it depends on how confident you are. If you've got a good car and you think you can get them on speed, stay on the same strategy and just try to race them outright. But if you're not too confident in your car, maybe this track isn't really vibing with you too much, try to get them on strategy. Throw a wrench at it, come down pit road, get off sequence, see what happens. It really is just going to be a matter of confidence. But pit road has gotten really busy in the last few laps. Van de Sant now making his way out. And I'll tell you what, guys, this is a really long pit road. And if it wasn't for iRacing having an actual speedometer, I would think speeding would be a bit of a concern here in real life, where you're looking at a tachometer. But here on iRacing, we got a speedometer, so no penalties thus far.
Yeah, and I will tell you that, let me try to go back to my pit exit cam. I had a telestrator that I meant to get, but look at it here. This is Dodson right here. That's where I thought the speed cone ends, but no, the speed ends right there. So your natural instinct says the pit wall is gone, so I can floor it. But the actuality is you can't floor it that yet. So I'm actually quite surprised nobody has gotten a penalty for that reason alone. It really takes discipline to go pit road speed limit when you're not in pit road anymore.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to pull a Juan Pablo Montoya back in the day. He's still disputes.
He put his life on it. He wasn't speeding. NASCAR just tried to bleep his day.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times something has gone wrong, and I've quoted Juan Pablo in that instance and just blame NASCAR for everything.
Yeah, because this was the only, I think there was 2 or 3 races in a row here. This was, I think he won, oh my God, I don't want to be on the spot. I want to say 3 races, but they were all road races. Maybe it was 2.
Two. One at Sears Point and one at Watkins Glen. Oh, driver.
Christopher.
Locking it up there.
Christopher. Yeah. But he never really came close to winning an oval race outside of this very circuit. And I know the one year he got bit on the penalty, and I don't remember what happened the other year, but either way, this was the only chance he would have ever had to win on an oval, which I guess technically it's a rectangle, so I guess even if he did win, doesn't still count for that, but never quite had that oval win.
And I'll tell you what, a lot of people, including myself, I got to admit, when Juan Pablo was in the sport, I wasn't a big fan of him. I didn't like his attitude. And, of course, I was kind of a Marcus Ambrose fan, so when it came to road courses, I always wanted him to win. But, looking back objectively, Juan Pablo did a good job in NASCAR. Not too many drivers have ever made the jump from open wheel to closed wheel stock cars and really had a whole lot of success. And even though Juan Pablo really only won on the road courses, he still made his presence known on the ovals. It wasn't like he showed up and you just knew he wasn't going to win. You knew there was a chance, and he did have a chance a few times of actually grabbing a win. And
caution.
He did a really solid job. And there is our third fun caution, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan Delaney had a massive lead. That is now
17 seconds.
And that's really interesting, guys, because that is, mid-pit sequence.
And
that's really going to shake things up.
Yeah.
I think if you went ahead and pitted and you didn't go a lap down, that's really what you're looking for, because you should shuffle back out in the front.
It worked in Delaney's benefit, the first caution, because he did have the advantage of already having pit, but now he's going to have to come through the field, which, let's just be honest, it shouldn't be that hard for him to do, but still, you don't want to have to do it if you don't have to.
Well, and the thing is, too, it sounds easy on paper. We know he's got the fastest car in the field. Just pass everybody. Just get back up the lead. But we saw what happened to John when he was too preoccupied racing Anderson, and I believe it was a Black Flag Motorsports car coming through, or no, it was Lucas Hoytsman, I apologize, coming through turn 12. He was so focused on making the pass, he missed his braking zone, had to turn around. And when you don't have a 17-second lead to fall back on, you got to make sure mistakes like that don't happen. So he's got to keep it clean, keep a level head, and be patient if he can. He's got a lot of racing left. We're going to be going green probably lap 60, 61, so that'll leave just over 20 laps, which is quite a bit here. So we'll see what he can do.
Related to that, I mean, we get within 10 or so laps left, and he gets shuffled towards the back. These drivers are going to be fighting for every single position to try and maintain either their position in the lead or maybe in the top 5, and it's just going to make it more and more difficult for him if he gets further back in the pack.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get. I have the back end telemetry, which I can usually share, but today for some reason just doesn't want to cooperate. Looks like roughly 10 or so guys pitted already, so that would open the door up for that, for him to be at least that in the 10th spot. And then in terms of laps to go, we have 25, so this will be, if you're tight on fuel or whatever the situation is, you can pit from this point on, and the guys who already did pit, they pitted knowing that they're fine. So I think it should just be an easy pit stop, and just how fast he can get through. And as you guys were talking about, is hoping nothing happens in the process of repassing all those cars.
If something does happen, you got to think he'd be beating himself up, because it's one thing to make a mistake when you're racing aggressive, getting up through the field, but when you've got the fastest car and you make a mistake like that, sometimes you're thinking, man, why wasn't I just more patient? So he's going to have to keep a level head.
Don't speed, as we just talked about. Like, just when you have the dominant car, you just have to check every box of how can I, as a driver, screw this up. I can speed, I can spin out, I can miss a shift and blow the engine. You just have to go down every single checkbox and just take all the controllables and make sure you nail them. And if you're going to get beat, it's going to be beat by something that you had absolutely no control of.
Here he comes.
Along with the vast majority of the field, because we didn't have too many drivers. Again, 10, so maybe a third of the field stayed out. You can see on the track, that was, I think, Neil Pearson. And Chad Sanner coming in. Actually, that was Pearson right there. Steele, Grassi, and company all coming to the attention of their crews, and we'll see if the jacks go up. I mean, we haven't really seen a need for it all evening, but we'll see if the jacks go up on Delaney, and if he does choose to take tires, because he's been running his best laps, as we were talked about all day, on 15, 20 lap old tires.
Yeah, Corey, I got a question. Maybe you can tell me with your telemetry. When is the last time Adam Benefiel came down pit road? Because he stayed out. He will be inheriting the lead, I believe.
Adam Benefiel has been on the racetrack for 4 laps.
Okay, so he's pretty much good to go on fuel.
Yeah, I would imagine everybody who is on the track right now that did not pit, you'd have to imagine that they wouldn't pit outside of their fuel window. It looks like the Bryson Hixenbaugh he has 6 laps since his last pit stop, so he would be the one that is pushing it right to that 30 lap window. But we saw Anderson pull a 30 lap window, and of course we have the caution here, so I would assume that should give him enough leverage.
Boy, oh boy, this is looking to be a pretty good race. Adam Benefiel, obviously a very talented driver. He's going to be restarting from the front. We got John Delaney a little bit further back. We know he's going to be able to race through these guys. It's just a matter of how quickly can he do it. Man, oh man, what are you guys' predictions? Tyler, what do you think?
I think that Delaney is still the favorite for this race, but he has got to be very methodical and very considerate and deliberate for these next 20 or so laps, and has to just be sure that and again, there's always a chance that someone else makes a mistake right in front of you. They spin out and your day is ruined. So you just got to be, assertive, but not over aggressive, making your way through the field. But I would still put my money on Delaney to win it all.
Let's try to do, I guess, one more interview. And if we may, I think I can grab Patrick Mouchet. He's been having a very solid run here this evening. Have him queued up here. Let's drag him on in. Patrick, Corey up in the booth. You got me?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's been a solid day for you. You've been in the top 10 the majority of the race, fighting for different spots, but strategy has been the name of the game this evening. How are you feeling with how the cards have been played for you so far?
It's been pretty nice. I mean, the first caution I pitted like right after the caution came out. I mean, right before, sorry. And that kind of messed me up. But on this one, I timed it perfectly because I was actually coming in the lap the caution came out. So it's helped me a lot with track position, and hopefully I can keep it.
Yeah, you got 6th right now, and the tires really haven't fallen off thus far, and we're still kind of up for maybe one more fun flag. We don't quite know. So are you kind of hoping it just goes green from here and you can run it out, or do you think that might come into play and help you if it does come out at all?
I think everyone's good on fuel now, so it'd probably be best if we ran green the rest of the way.
All right, so we'll see what happens. We'll wish you luck and let you get back at it. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
So as he kind of said, the first caution, the strategy didn't work out, and the second time it did work out. Kind of just luck of the draw, but lights are out on that pace car, so one more time around and we'll get ourselves going here. Delaney's going to be firing off in 3rd with Hickenbaugh and Long on that front row. So Delaney's not going to be starting nearly as far back. I thought we'd be starting back in 10th or so, 10th, 12th, but he's only in 3rd, so this is pretty much a gimme for him.
Yeah, a ton of wave arounds were taken on that lap there, Corey. That really changes my outlook on this race. Starting 3rd, that's got to be a huge advantage to Delaney.
Yeah, he's basically, I mean, if he gets a good enough run, he could technically have the lead by turn 2. I noticed there, he actually almost intentionally ran in as much dirt as possible there. Is that almost like I can't run in the grass, so let me just get as much dirt on my tires because dirt's cooler than asphalt? I'm almost wondering if that's the logic there.
That is absolutely the logic. One thing I also want to point out is that, yeah, John doesn't have to go through too many cars. One of those cars in front of him is a teammate, so that is helpful. But he's also right behind his eternal rival, Bryson Hickenbaugh. These guys, I don't think they're ever going to get along, at least as far as Bryson is concerned. I think John's ready to bury the hatchet. John was talking to Bryson earlier in the year about something. I can't remember what, but they were talking about the rivalry, and John was like, well, I thought we were cool. And Bryson said, and I quote, I don't know why you would ever think we were cool. So it's going to be, let's say, fun for John to try to get through the 63.
What's the old, we worked closely with SimTV, and they had their slogan used to be like virtual racing, real emotions. We're driving pixel cars, but the racing that goes on is real, and you can definitely make friends and foes aplenty. That is most certainly the case. So I wouldn't expect fireworks here, because admin will definitely hone down on that, and there's been a lot of talk of retaliation in the league being an instant ban, but there's ways to get back at somebody, just basically annoy them as much as possible. We've seen that happen as well. But getting ready here to go green for our 3rd restart of the race. Pace car has already pulled in. And
no, we still got lights on, Corey.
The lights
I think we got
it was off.
More.
It was
They
off.
were off, yes. I think this caution got extended.
Oof, this is the 2nd time I have preempted a restart and it just died on me, so.
All right, I can confirm that the caution was extended. Also, that last caution, I don't believe that was a random caution. That was an instance of the total incident limit being reached, according to the in-game chat. The admin chat says total incident limit reached, and that chat came through the exact lap that the caution came out. So technically, we could have 2 more fun cautions.
Because if it's not counting, if the random cautions are separate from the incident cautions, then that would give us the bonus one. But if it does count as a total race caution, that would be different. I don't know the software, so I couldn't confirm, but I would imagine they would be treated separately.
I guess my thing is, besides bunching up the field and having a restart, if everyone can make it on fuel the rest of the race, I mean, unless we get a caution on lap 80 or something like that, as I mentioned before, I'm not sure what difference it makes when it comes to strategy.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much a dead game. I think the pit crews can pack up the war wagons and start getting ready for Michigan, and it's just going to be in the driver's hands. And You know, Delaney has to get the lead, and if it comes down to a late race restart like that, it's just a matter of how much do I, as the kids say, want to yeet turn one, and if I'm going to get the win, I'm going to have to basically force Delaney off the line. I think it's, or if he screws it up by himself, but you know, we race to the checkered flag for a reason, because anything could happen between now and lap 82, and right now, Hixenbaugh and Long get ready on that front row, and everybody else is trying to, you'd say clean off your tires, but I almost feel like they're trying to purposely get the dirt on their tires due to kind of reverse physics here, but sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yes, iRacing, the most realistic driving experience you can ever have, guys.
We kid because we care, but it still is kind of messed up.
I mean, to be fair, in the list of egregious things iRacing has done, I don't think cooler tire temps being a bit exploitable is really up there on the list.
Oh, trust me, Corey and I, we've got a list of various grievances we have.
We have a podcast that we're waiting to film. It's just kind of been in staging, and then it's on my YouTube feed, and I keep just delaying it every 2 weeks and pushing it back. But it'll happen one of these days, and when it does, we'll let you know. But now the pace car has pulled in, and it will not throw me off this time by. It is Hixenbaugh, the control vehicle for the restart. And this is when Delaney has gone. He's gone midway through the corner. Let's see if that's when Hixenbaugh decides to do it, and he will as well. Everyone's going to get on that accelerator and head down underneath the flag stand and get this race back underway.
And as they're pretty strung out throughout the second half of the field, that was a really great start by our leader as they dive into turn number one. Oh, some drivers really locking it up.
Oh, carnage.
I think the 51 spun around.
Yeah, they were 5 wide for a second there. That was inevitable.
Yeah, we'll try to get a better view of that if we can. See, just everyone different break. Grassy hard on the binders. He got into the 51 there, and then everyone is just trying to funnel through, and it is a slightly different braking point there, guys. It's kind of, you talk about this at the Roval a little bit, where you're not fully up to speed, so you're going to have different braking points for that one restart. Sometimes that throws guys off. As some side-by-side there with Giglio and Heitzman and Mouchet there. As where is Delaney?
Whoa!
Oh, the 45.
Oh, no! Oh, he couldn't keep it out of the Armco.
John Delaney is in the pits.
Oh,
Is that
no.
an incident? I don't know. That's throwing me off completely, guys.
I'll tell you what, give me 1 minute to do some recon. I'll look at John's replay.
Yeah, you're going to see an instant replay logo on the screen for a little bit, because I am trying to...
He was in the wreck. He got hit by Preston McRae.
All right, we're going to try... I'm going to try to cue this up without completely screwing up the stuff here, because we do want to cover that.
Oh, he got loose. Preston was just a bystander. John actually got loose and fishtailed it, and the cars behind him had nowhere to go.
Yeah, it's kind of the annoyance of certain broadcasting nuances here is if the telemetry doesn't bring it up, I can't really find it. I'm going to take one more stab at it because we don't have anything going on. I'm going to try to sift through and find it. Oh, here we go.
Right here. So you're going to see him fishtail it just a little bit coming out of the corner. And that's the place to get loose when you got 8 cars behind you.
And didn't I say a little earlier that...
Oh, man, 53.
Didn't I say earlier that if you're John Delaney, the one thing that you have to do, one more look at it, is take the controllables out of it. You know, don't screw up when it's your race to lose. And Preston McRae there.
Just a hard hit to the driver's side door there.
All right, so we'll go back to live action. And sorry, it took a little bit longer to fish through there, but we wanted to make sure we covered that because that was a very important change to the race. Well, guys, basically the race is open to win now because the guy who was way faster than everybody's out of it.
Tell you what, John, he's one of the fastest drivers on road courses, but every single race comes to an unfortunate close for him, it seems. I remember last year at the Roval, he had the fastest car in the field, and inexplicably, coming back onto the oval portion, he just decided to gas it up way too early and rear-ended Bryson Hixenbaugh, which triggered the incident limit, which disqualified John. John, I believe, also had an issue at, I want to say it was Sonoma 1 year. So,
Hixenbaugh!
Our leader into the grass. There goes
Wow.
Bryson Hixenbaugh.
Yeah, multiple like fast runners tonight. All of a sudden making mistakes.
Maybe it's all the dirt that we're pulling on this racetrack here. He just too much curb.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he almost saved it. He kind of did like a 3/4 spin there, but sometimes that curb will help you rotate. Sometimes it'll help you rotate, and it helped him rotate.
Well, I know we still have 20 laps to go, and these are long laps, so we are, approaching really the pivotal moments of this race where it matters. You make a mistake earlier in the race, unless you have a lot of damage, you can usually recover. But these guys are fighting for position. No more need for fuel to come in the pit, so I think these guys are maybe pushing a little bit too hard.
Now, Blake Giglio, he is going to see what he can do. We talked to him earlier. He had some confidence in this race. At least I think we talked to him earlier. I feel like we did. That was a while ago. But he had some confidence in his abilities to have a solid run. And at least last time by, we'll switch the ticker over one more time. He was 4/10 faster than Pearson, and we have 19 laps, so if you do 4/10 a lap times 19, it equals probably enough to gain 3 seconds. So if he can figure that out, then he has a chance to get there. But we'll see if he can sustain that. A gaggle of vehicles here right behind Tanner Marty, who's in 5th now. Hixenbaugh trying to gain some of those spots back, but he has Mark Paget, Kyle Ammon, one of our playoff bubble drivers here. He's had a chaotic event, but trying to hang on for a top 10. Then Van de Sant just behind him. Van de Sant, another chaotic event for him. He's in that 9th spot just behind these guys.
I'll tell you what, at the top of the broadcast, Tyler made some just about prophetic comments about consistency being what he thought would be the most important thing tonight. And Tyler, you're absolutely right. The guy who's leading the race right now, Pearson, he may not be the fastest car on the track, but you know what? He's made the fewest mistakes. He's been out here clicking off laps consistently all night long. The guys in front of him, they made mistakes. They spun out. They got sideways. They took themselves out of this event. Meanwhile, he was just back here clicking off consistent laps, and so far it's paying off.
Well, he has 18 laps to join the crowd of screwing up, Andre, and I think you've just set the timer for him by making that comment, so...
Well, I tell you what, Andre, what he doesn't want is another one of those random cautions, because right now he's got a pretty big gap on our second place driver, and really just the rest of the field seems to be stretching out. He wants to have this thing stay green so he doesn't have a lot of pressure, have to deal with another restart, and he can try and sail the way to victory.
Yeah, we were just talking about Giglio only being about 3 seconds back. I don't know what happened, if he had a little off-track excursion or what, but now he's upwards of 6 seconds back, so that kind of defeats that storyline there, that something may be happening, as Hixenbaugh and Marty swapping the 5th spot here, and that's Mark Paget trying to fill the gap in, trying to go 2 for 1 there, and then there goes Van de Sant and Ammon. Ammon's showing some speed here in the final stages of this race.
Tell you what,
A lot of speed by Ammon on the binders there. Sorry, Andre.
I was going to say that 29 must have a target painted on the back of that thing, because he's taking a lot of hits tonight.
Well, he has something. He has a unhappy face, so I guess close enough, right?
I'd be frustrated too, man. He's been hit by just about everybody that's gotten near him.
Well, and again, we have was it 15 incident points before you're parked for this, if I remember correctly. So you don't want these drivers to keep running into you and having trouble, because I'm sure he doesn't have a very low number at this stage.
Yeah, that would be something that a good majority of this field, because every time you do those little self loops, you're getting yourself a 2x loss of control contact. Usually you can't get a 2x and a 1x, so But if you make contact, you'll get a 2x, sometimes and a 4x. So sometimes it's 6 incidents for an incident here, depending how bad it is. So, 3 or 4 of those, you'll put yourself right on the cusp, and you obviously don't want to test that too closely. I do want to give some credit to our cameras today, brought to you by Whiplash Sim Cams in conjunction with PSI PitStop.TV. So if you like what you see, you can reach out and try to get access to those. But that's Derek Heitman, and Andre, I know we talked about maybe it's not his first run, but he's filling in for Dustin Hall. We don't really have too much backstory on him, but he's closing in on Giglio, and for a odd run out here to help out, if he could put that thing P2 or even stay P3, that's a whale of an evening.
Oh, it absolutely is. And, the number 1 has already found victory lane this year, so that car is locked into the playoffs. Dustin Hall, when he does get back into that machine, he will be ready to go for the playoffs. And Heitman, all he really had to do tonight, knowing that this car was locked in, all he had to do was come out here and bring it home clean, but he's exceeding those expectations big time. He's out here running in the podium, challenging for second place against Giglio here, and just having a phenomenal run in that Team Conti machine. I do want to make a correction. Last time I was in the booth, I had said that Dustin Hall drove for his team, which he started, instead of Team Conti. I was incorrect. Dustin Hall did start a team, a satellite team to Conti, but Dustin is not driving for it. He did remain under the Conti umbrella, so he is teammates with Adam Benefiel, and I guess by extension right now, Heitman would be teammates with Benefiel. But I just want to make that correction because I did misspeak last time I was up here.
And some vibes sent towards him, some good vibes. He's going to lock it up there, entering the chicane. A little bit of door action to Giglio there. Was Giglio going to be able to remain door to door? Yes, he will. And some more contact. Oh.
You guys are going at it. I love this.
That's not going to be on the... I know someone's not getting a Christmas card from Giglio, but is Giglio going to try to reboot here down the front straightaway? How hard is he going to send it off into 1? It's not close enough.
He's going to have to really send it. He's going to have to pretty much just dive it in there.
If you're mad, I mean, you can infinitely drive it in, but not enough to make a move there. But I mean, this is all now 9 seconds behind Pearson, who has just shot himself out of a cannon here. I know, Tyler, I wasn't able to say that line on Monday night during our last broadcast. Shot himself out of a cannon here. But Height's been definitely showing those road course skills, and if he does have the opportunity to drive the remainder of the season, Watkins Glen is in 2 weeks, and then of course we still have the Charlotte Roval to encompass the 2022 campaign. Hopefully those races are going to be covered on 3YTV. In fact, we already got one commentator who's interested in the role just from this broadcast, so you might have a new partner, Andre, but and we'll be with you guys next week here at Michigan on PTR TV. Michigan's always one of the fastest races of the season, one of the cleanest races. I'm kind of curious how it's going to race from a next-gen perspective. We haven't been there, and it is quite drafty in this car. It does facilitate multi-groove racing as we have some lockups going on. So Michigan's going to be kind of an unknown, and be interesting to see how that works out next week.
While we had the one car on screen, I just want to give a quick reminder to the viewers. The number 1 is sponsored by Jimmy Strong, and they do have a GoFundMe for a young man by the name of Coben, who's currently fighting stage 4 cancer. And I'm not exactly sure if we can get a link or something maybe in the chat, or if you just go to any of the 100% social medias on Twitter, Facebook, Discord, there's links to this GoFundMe pretty much everywhere that you can find 100% stuff. If you so choose, or if you can, any amount donated to that charity would help. I know most of us here in the league have donated a little bit where we can, and even if you can't donate, maybe just throw some love and support that family's way. They can definitely use it. It's a great cause and a wonderful family. Dustin Hall, his nephew, and his entire family are just wonderful people, and if anybody could use your support, it's definitely there.
Trying to find that link here as we speak, Andre, and I can throw it in our chat. Trying to see what thread it may be in, but I will try to figure that out on the back end here. Most certainly the case, and currently Height's been Heightley in there, 8 seconds behind your leader, Neil Pearson, who has just, ever since the door has been opened by Delaney, having his issues, Delaney has retired from the event. The door is now open, and he is most certainly taking advantage of it. Other action on track here. Still seeing Kyle Ammon and Adam Benefiel. Looks like the latter into the top 10 is where the action seems to be thus far.
Yeah, definitely where the battles have been all night long. And really, for a road course, usually you expect these guys to get a little bit more spread out, but it seems like somewhere in the field, the entirety of this race, we've had some guys door to door really battling. So it's been a pretty fun race to watch so far, as the 83 is continuing to try to pull away a little bit from the number 5 of Ammon, who had a pretty good top, we haven't really talked about Ammon, but having a good top 10 night so far.
Well, and I've just been amazed throughout this entire event how many drivers are able to go side by side through some of these turns, and I think part of that's just the way that this track is designed, where you have a number of S's and really sharp turns where, you know, maybe the inside is the preferred groove on one of the turns, but then the next turn it's the outside would have been the outside groove is now the preferred groove, and I just think it leads to some great competitive racing, and again, you know, some of these drivers are better at certain sections of the track than others, so have a bit of an accordion effect as well.
Brandon Pierce closing in on Sean O'Brien. Pierce has had an interesting day. I fail to remember who it was that he mutilated earlier in the race right around this point on the track, but I know he did have some braking issues and caused somebody to go off track. Closing in on Sean O'Brien Jr. Just behind them is the 24 Kevin Steele here. This is all Kevin Steele is actually one lap down in the 20th position. And just
I believe it was Pierce's temporary teammate Dobson, who he got into earlier.
And he's just behind this as well. So maybe Dodson's trying to close it and have some teamwork frolic, teammate frolics there going on to re-encompass that battle. Whoa. 12 machine of Taylor hard on the binders there. Him and the 29 both lock up there. That's 11th and 10th, Marty and Jason Taylor. The Whataburger Ford Mustang.
Oh, caution, guys.
Oh,
Fun,
boy.
is that our third fun flag or is that our fourth one? I lost count.
That would be our third if that's what it is. Let me take a look. Nope, that was another incident limit. That was not a random caution.
Okay.
Now that doesn't surprise me. We had a lot of contact, a lot of drivers going off track. It kind of makes sense we reached that limit a little bit quicker this time.
So it doesn't change anything from a strategy perspective, and then now it seems that, you know, the speed aura of Delaney has just transported into the 62. But I don't know. Pearson wasn't the best guy. He wasn't a number 2 all race, really. He's in the top 5. So I'm wondering now that these guys are kind of jumbled back up, if, you know, maybe a Giglio on a reset, maybe Matt Long, he's in 4th, maybe Hicksonbaugh, who's in 5th now, he has that track position, that time back. Somebody can get up there and compete with that 62.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a question of who can get a great restart as well. You know, if you're able to jump it just right, get to the inside going into turn number 1, and take away that lead from Pearson, you know, even just put him in a position where he has to battle really hard. And again, as we saw on the last restart, we've got our leaders spinning and wrecking and all kinds of chaos. So there's so many unknowns here with 11 laps to go. Probably have, I'd say, at least 9 laps, maybe 8, depending on whether they try and throw a quickie yellow or not.
I do think I've never actually used the software that the league does have available to them. But from what I've understood of it, they can set very specific parameters as to when they want a caution to be thrown, and when they don't want it to be thrown. So if a caution does, I think they can limit it to not throw a caution within like X laps to X laps. So if they don't want to have a caution like randomly thrown with 2 to go, I think they can avoid that. But I'm not sure how they've set the session up and if that's how it is. So if it randomly triggered a green-white checker, that would most certainly be an interesting turn of events for sure.
Yeah, I don't expect any drivers to come into the pits. I mean, unless they have some damage they need to repair or something of that nature. I think everyone's pretty much good to go on fuel. Tires aren't an issue. Our leaders have stayed out.
Yeah, so maybe we can grab one more driver and see what their opinion is towards this last restart. Well, is Neil? Well, we have our leader. Is he? Do we have his channel queued up, or is he available? I don't think he is. Oh, there he is. Anybody want to do an interview with our race leader?
Hand it off to Tyler. I don't think he's done an interview yet tonight.
Oh my goodness.
Nose game, Tyler.
Well,
have fun.
All right. Hey, Pearson, it's Tyler Warren up here in the booth. How you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good, Tyler. How about yourself?
Oh, just doing great. I'm sure you weren't too happy to see that last caution come out there, were you?
No, I'm a bit annoyed. I had that 9-second lead, so I was just hoping to cruise through to the end.
Yeah, you've really shown a lot of speed here after this last restart. You've been running towards the front pretty much most of the race, but really stretching it out there. Anything different you've been trying, or any adjustments you've made?
I honestly don't know. I didn't do anything to the car. I took tires at the very first caution, and yeah, it just took off on that last restart. I mean, I think that restart there was the first one I've had up the front. Every other one I was buried in the field, so I didn't get to use the cold tires, where I think that's where they got their most grip.
Well, any expectations for this restart? Expecting a lot of chaos or anything in particular?
Hopefully behind me and not beside me. So if I can just get a good jump and hit my braking markers into one, and hopefully I can just drive away.
All right. Well, good luck to you for the rest of the race.
Thank you.
That is our race leader, and who I am going to make a very, very basic assumption that is our fellow Aussie. Well, a fellow Aussie, because I'm not Aussie, but an Aussie nonetheless.
Yeah, sounds pretty confident in the car, and like you said, hoping the chaos happens behind him, which means he's going to have to get a good jump, and I tell you what, I don't think there's anything more anxiety-inducing at a road course than diving into the hairpin on a restart and watching that mirror, just hoping that you don't see a car getting substantially bigger in that mirror when they should be slowing down.
We've seen from a restart perspective, as I think maybe we're on 3 or 4 restarts we've had, the initial start included. Everyone has gone at the exact same point, which has basically been, we'll kind of go on board here with Pearson. It's right about at this pit entry kind of wall beginning. That's where everybody has gone. Now you basically can go from there all the way up to the green flag, which waves much later onto the racetrack, up to where the grid marks are painted. But these guys are going super early, so I wonder if he's going to try something and maybe try something to get himself a little bit more of a gap, throw these guys off, or if he's going to keep that same trend continuing.
Yeah, if I were in his shoes, I'd do something a little bit different. Maybe have a later timing on your restart, just to get these guys, not to stack up the field or anything, but to keep them guessing. I mean, this is going to be such an important restart for him. He wants to try and get a little bit of a gap compared to the rest of the pack behind him, get some space. He can try and just stay out front and not have to worry about, someone getting to his inside or outside or really, putting himself in a position where someone could try and dive bomb him.
Certainly do agree with that, as the 1 to go has been given, so these guys are getting doubled up, stacked up, ready to go back green flag racing here. And it looks like he is going to have the 16 of Blake Giglio to his right side, so depending on how good or bad of a start he gets, Giglio would be the one that may or may not take that aggressive 3-wide move into the braking zone, because of course that's going to be the best place to get him. If you can't get him on the long run, then you got to get him while he's right next to you, and that immediate dive into 1 is definitely going to be the biggest stress point. I think if he can get through there and maybe even get 2 or 3 car length lead, he'll be able to set sail and kind of just set his own pace while the guys battle behind him.
Yeah, it's going to be a very crucial restart, probably the most crucial restart of the night. I think the likelihood of getting a random caution is going to be pretty low. We only have to make it 8 laps once we take the green. And as for the incident limit, I mean, they'd really have to try to get that incident limit in the next 8 laps. So I'm going to make the assumption that this is going to stay green. And if that's the case, you got to get a good restart here if you're Pearson. And if you're Heitman, you gotta be on the ball. And sometimes restarting second is more difficult than anything else, because if you're behind the leader, you can see right when they go and respond accordingly. But sometimes if you're next to the leader, you're kind of going off a sound. You have to listen to them and see when they get on the loud pedal, and it makes it really difficult to time.
Well, and I think too, on the restart, where you're not going quite as the same speed as you were on a full flat out lap, I think the outside is not the preferred groove. Especially when you're trying to get to the inside on turn number 1. There's a good chance that people can try to go to his inside, box him out, and he can lose a few positions.
I definitely agree with that. It's hard to be the second place driver on the restarts, even for the virtual reality drivers such as myself. It's just, you're just out to lunch many times. But we'll see what Heitman tries to do. We'll see if Giglio is able to sustain as well. When is Pearson going to fire off? He's going to go a little bit later than everybody else there. He's going to go fire off, gain that about 1 car length lead. Giglio is going to go side by side with Heitman, but Pearson has 3/10 right off the bat.
And I think that restart, as a result, spread them out a little bit throughout the field, but they're still going 3-4 wide.
Let's see.
Charging into turn number 1.
Brake lock up.
A little bit of contact between Giglio and Heitman. Bryson going way wide there. Vandesant goes around. He's going to slide through into the Armco barrier.
It's hard
And
contact.
then Benefield, Dodson. Go on replay quickly here. We'll try to see at least what happened to a couple. You can see some major contact there. And Hicksonbaugh, when he got loose, threw him in there, and then the carnage and such that fell suit behind. But we'll try to get back to live race action right now. Pearson up by 2.5 seconds, so that carnage worked out right in his favor.
It did. Now, remember how I said they'd have to try to hit that incident limit in 8 laps.
Well, they're trying pretty hard. Well, the battle's going to be for second right now, because Giglio has Matt Long, he has Hicksonbaugh, he has Ammon. Ammon in the top 5. He was terrible to start this race. Look where he finds himself, as there goes Long. There goes Hicksonbaugh, try to use the left side of the track, use the outside lane coming back onto the front stretch.
Yeah, there's a pack of them, a few drivers there fighting for those positions side by side as they go down the front stretch. 97 has the preferred line, but I think he's
didn't want to send it and nearly got into the right rear there.
And again, that's a case of when you're on the outside, it's not where you want to be through the next set of turns.
This track is just so full of switchbacks where you're going one way and then immediately the other. So you mentioned it earlier, Tyler. You really got to think ahead of this track and set yourself up way ahead of time. And that's kind of what Bryson did. He didn't have the preferred line in the first set of turns, but once they got to the next portion, he was able to get out ahead. So it's kind of a tactical track here, but they're evenly paced, guys. I mean, this 97 and the 63, they're pretty close, and you can't discount Kyle Ammon in that 5 either. He had a really good restart, and he's been pretty consistent all night, so we'll see what he can do here.
This is basically third through. We can go all the way back to just at the end of it, Sean O'Brien Jr. there in the 7th spot. Jason Taylor not too far back. Lucas Hoitzma He's had an up and down day, some battling going on there. Patrick Mouchet just outside of the top 10. He's been a top 5 driver, top 7, 8 driver, something in those lines all race. Battling with Tanner Marty, who's definitely got his fair share of TV time today for whether good or bad reasons, trying to hold off Mouchet there. And Brandon Pierce, another up and down day. But for that matter, I think if you're about 8th through 20th, you've pretty much had an up and down day. It's kind of akin to Mario Kart in the back of the pack. You can't avoid a turtle shell or a lightning bolt no matter what you do when you're in the back.
Ooh, big lockup.
Yeah, just caught that off the edge there of the screen, but that's what happens when everybody's fighting for these positions towards the end. Already on 6 laps to go, and just that extra little 1 or 2% that you can offer on the binders here may be the move to make. Heitzman and Princeton there.
Well, you mentioned the Mario Kart reference, Corey, and I mean that really is true because you've got a section of drivers, in that, I'd say like 10 to 20 range that, have like pretty good pace, but they're just not quite as, maybe they're not road course ringers is what I'm getting at here, and therefore they're all just battling. This is probably a style of racing they don't do quite as much of. Compared to maybe some of the top runners in this event, and because of that, they're prone to make some mistakes, and also they're prone to really fight for every position they have, and a lot of great battles in this mid-pack.
I want to point out Patrick Mouchet is on track right now, 11th, as we're focusing on him. Patrick was just messaging in another Discord. I was talking to him just a few minutes ago, so I don't know if he was doing that under caution or exactly how he was managing that, but I had assumed when he was typing that he was no longer in the race.
Maybe he has like a "Hey Siri, message this to." As I just say that, my phone goes off. Luckily, it's on mute right now. That's the only way I can figure that out. But Van de Sant is behind Steele here, a lap down car, and through all this, Neil Pearson has pulled himself out to a 4.5 second lead over Blake Giglio. So it almost makes you wonder the pace that actually I'm gonna pull this up, the lap graphic here. A 126 flat. So whatever Pearson did, I think if John Delaney was in this race, we would have a genuine fight on our hands, because the laps that Pearson is running are right on pace, if not significantly faster than what Delaney was running.
Well, this race reminds me a little bit of the tortoise and the hare, so to speak, and not that Pearson is slow by any means, but he was very
nobody, Siri.
Well, anyway, he was very methodical throughout this event as we're winding down here, and just took his time, was patient, and didn't rush things, didn't overdrive the car. And if he can hang on for the last few laps, I think again this is an example of maybe he wasn't the fastest driver throughout the entire race, but he was there and competitive when it mattered.
Something that you just said caused my Apple iPhone, I don't want to say the name, to make me want to send a text message. So I don't know, that's just technology for you. The closest battle, at least on the track in the top 10, is Paget and Ammon. Ammon in the 5, trying to hold on to that 5th spot. And I've talked about this a couple times over the course of broadcast. A top 10 means something, but there's just something about having that stat of a top 5 that means so much more. If you're 6th, saying that you have a top 5, it's just like it's just icing on the cake. It means so much more. So if I'm Ammon, I'm fighting to the death for that top 5 stat. If I'm Paget, I am fighting to death because I want that top 5 rather than that top 10.
Yeah, it's funny how the difference from finishing 7th to 6th doesn't really feel significant, but 6th to 5th is a whole different world, a different ballpark. So these guys are going to race hard for it. And man, a little bit of lockup from Ammon. That's going to put him side by side coming through this set of turns. Luckily, Ammon had the inside, which got him clear, but does not look like Paget is going to let him go easy. He's getting a huge run out of this corner, coming in onto the straightaway here. See what he can do with it.
Yeah, use that left side of the track, which it may or may not work. It's going to give him a more natural braking point into 1, but Ammon's going to have the preferred actual racing groove. But Ammon's going to do a good job slowing down and using that alternate line. And he's going to fend off for now as this race is closing in on its waning stages. And we're coming to, we're only on 3 laps to go. So definitely time to get those last second spots as Heitman does get by Pierce there. That's for 14th. But up front, our leader is up by 6 seconds as only a little bit left to go.
And just going back to the top 5 for a moment, I think that's really about the closest thing we have to podiums in NASCAR. You know, unlike IndyCar or Formula One or other forms of motorsports, you don't really recognize the second or third place drivers independently. But I think, you know, top 5s are something that, you know, usually if you get a top 5, you've had a pretty good day.
Yeah, like Andre, you were saying, like, you fight for different spots. Like, if I'm third and someone's passing me for 4, you know, if I'm in third and I get passed to go back to 4th, I don't really care. 4th to 5th, you know, I don't really care. 5th to 6th, no, we are fighting for that bad boy. I want that stat. Maybe that's just me being absurd, but that's how I fight for it anyways.
I think you're like me. You're probably a bit of a stat junkie, and you spend too much time on Racing Reference, and you see the top 5, top 10, average start, average finish, and you know how important that is.
Like iRacing, from an official iRacing perspective, the iRacing doesn't track top 10s. iRacing only track, if you look at your official iRacing stats, if you do race the official races, they only show top 5s and wins. So you got to have those if you want to look good on the stat sheet. But coming here on the back straightaway for the penultimate time, Neil Pearson, the Aussie, the number 62, with the trying to look at the sponsors here to give him his proper shout outs here, as we'll be able to do post race. That looks like simrigs.com, and they're going to be proud of him. He's currently led 19 laps. It'll be 20 at the line, 21 if he can take the checkers, and presumably what'll be his first career cup win. Whether he's playoff eligible, we'll have to double check the stat sheet, but he's coming to the white flag lap.
Just a couple shakeups a little bit behind our leader. Bryson Nixonbaugh has moved into a podium position, and Paget has taken the top 5 away from Ammon. He just barely got around him, and he's not driving away either. Ammon is on that rear bumper through this set of turns, and Ammon is going to fight for this top 5. He's a driver who's just been getting better all season long, and you know, when I think of Kyle Ammon, I don't really think road courses. I know Ammon's pretty proficient at the 1.5 and the intermediates, but he's showing that he's been putting in the work at these road courses and getting better at them, because even if he doesn't walk away tonight with a top 5, he definitely had top 5 pace, and that's something to hold your head high with.
Certainly the case. And Pearson only having run 4 races this year, so this win will just kind of count in the ringer newbie category. Won't affect the playoff picture with the instant in, but it's going to give him that good run. Of course, Delaney dominated the first part of the race, but ended up taking himself out with a self-induced spin on a restart, and the driver who took most advantage of that was Neil Pearson. He was probably about 3rd, 4th place driver most of the opening stages, but made that adjustment, figured something out with the line, and once that was the case and Delaney was out of the picture, he has just drove off into the distance here and has really shown his dominance as he's going to come through the last couple corners here at Indy.
He's got that Mario Kart power-up you talked about before, Corey. Just put on the boosters, and what a performance here in this last section.
Coming off the final corner here at the Brickyard, and he's going to be kissing the bricks. The Aussie, Neil Pearson, takes the checkered flag here at the road course.
And luckily we didn't give him the commentator's curse there.
Giglio hangs on for life there, just nearly Hicksonbaugh. Sorry to cut you off there, Andre. That was a close battle for the podium here. Giglio, Hicksonbaugh, and then Long, and then Mark Paget with that last second move on Ammon will finish in the top 5.
Yeah, 0.3 of a second between Giglio and Hicksonbaugh. They were side by side coming to that line, as our winner is going to be taking his cool-down lap, a very long cool-down lap here, but man, you got to think he's pretty excited behind the wheel right now.
Yeah, I was a little worried whenever he wanted me to interview him that I might psych him out a little bit talking about the restart and everything, but it didn't faze him one bit, and he just drove off into the sunset.
We do have to wait a little bit longer than usual to do our final post-race results, just because of the fact we are on a road course and it does take a long time for some of the guys to complete their laps. We're just, before we cut to our post-race show, we're just going to allow these guys to finish. We'll see what kind of celebration he does. He's doing the full lap, not taking any chances with race control, disqualifying him. We'll see what he does for celebration. Some guys do the donut, some guys do the Polish victory lap, some guys just park on the start-finish line. Let's see what Pearson decides to do.
He might park on the bricks at the start-finish line.
I think that's exactly what he's going to do. And he's going to burn it on down. Well deserved.
Keep her off the wall. Oh.
Yeah, spoke too soon. I don't think he cares too much, though.
Putting on a little bit of a show, and you know, Indy's not the easiest track in the world to do that on because of how narrow the front stretch is here. But while he has finished doing that, let's go ahead and cue up the final results here tonight from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Neil Pearson with that win by, he somehow pulled out to 10 seconds nearly in just about 8 laps. That shows the speed he had. Giglio holds on a hard-charging Bryson Hicksonbaugh, who is trying to recover from a couple self-spins here tonight. Matt Long with 4th. Mark Padgett with a 5th. Lucas Hoytsma, a solid 6th-place effort. Alex Van de Sant went off track many a time this evening, still salvages a 7th. Jason Taylor, Sean O'Brien, and Adam Benefiel are top 10. And Andre?
And just looking outside the top 10, Patrick Muchet, after that little bit of an incident earlier in the race, powers back to an 11th place finish. Tanner Marty, after being seemingly the league's punching bag tonight, still finishes in the top 12 with a really solid run. And Derek Heitman, filling in for Dustin Hall, is going to finish 13th. Kyle Ammon drops back a little ways there at the end of the race to P14. I believe there must have been a penalty of some sort served there because he should have been 6th. And behind Ammon, you've got Brandon Pierce, Alex Princeton, Carl Dodson, Dylan Kritz, Kevin Steele, and Robert Anderson.
Further back in the field, 21st to Marcus Higginbotham, Jason Baker in 22nd, Wayne Grass in 23rd, 24th was Randy Drumhammer, 25th was the 33 of Tracy, and then the rest of the drivers ended up out of the race. Then 26, Preston McRae, Michael Christopher, and of course Delaney, so dominant in that first probably 2/3 of the race and just took himself out. Ends up 28th, very disappointing for him. 29th, Chad Sander, 30th, Devin Medeiros.
And rounding out our field, the only other 2 drivers were Ralph Hutcherson in 31st and Chad Edwards in 32nd. So we'll take it right down to Victory Circle. We talked to him a little bit earlier, but we'll talk to him again, but we'll talk to him in different terms this time. Neil, we talked to you a little bit ago and you were nervous about what could have been a chaotic restart. Well, it was chaotic, but that worked out to your benefit because it allowed you to get a huge lead and pull off and drive off into the sunset. How's it feel to get your first win in the series?
Good. I was a little surprised, with Delaney, like his little spin. So I think he would have had it if he didn't do that. So, but I'll take it. Win's a win.
Yeah, sometime we talked about it in the booth. It's about consistency. You might not have to be the best guy, but if you're the one that doesn't make the mistake, it works out in your favor. We've seen you have a few runs this year. Of course, the road course seems to be your cup of tea, but coming up to other tracks this season, are we going to see you as a full-time guy? And if so, what are you hoping to do in the remainder of the season?
I'm hoping to attend all the races. The issue is it's like early Sunday morning here for me, and sometimes I go out Saturday night, so I'm a little hungover or something, and that might mean a skip. But I'm going to try my best because it's good fun running these long distance races, and with all the guys out there, it's a lot really good clean racing, and I'm enjoying it.
You're enjoying it, and you put it in victory lane for your first race in the for your first victory in the season at the Indianapolis Road Course. And last question for you: with this being a recent release, obviously the layout didn't change radically, but it changed quite significantly. How difficult was it getting used to the new nuances of the updated Indy here?
Wasn't too bad. I had a fixed setup race on Thursday night, and I didn't do too good there, but I think just getting the laps in there and just able to run it, just, get your get you going. I think the biggest thing was the corners were a bit slower than the previous one and not as rotating, like long rotating corners. So that was nice.
And any shout outs, thanks you want to give for your efforts here tonight, man?
Yeah, just my sponsors. I just got to actually find them. Sorry. I got simrigs.com, Southwell Lifts and Hoists, Ben Max Mechanical, Phoenix Smokers, NP Designs for the paints, and my teammates and all that for all the fun that I do, even though they're not here, but it's good fun hanging out with them, and just you guys for the broadcast, and Damaris and Kevin for the series that they run. It's good fun.
All right, well, we'll let you go, man. Congrats again, and maybe we'll catch you on with a good run next week.
Hopefully.
And now Andre has caught up with second place tonight, Blake Giglio.
Blake Giglio, you got a copy?
Hey.
Oh, Blake, it was a really impressive podium. I went and talked to you a little bit earlier in the race to see what was going on with the wheel situation. You told me you were still having some force feedback issues, and despite that, you still drove it up to second place through a really hard-fought battle with the number one car, as well as a few other drivers there that you were duking it out with. Just tell me what the end of that race was like when everything got a little bit chaotic.
Yeah, that last yellow, I knew that I had on that restart, I had to try to get ahead of him, drive it in there as hard as I could. It stuck in turn one, and then we made some contact. I think it was, I don't know, the corners after that. And then I thought I was going to be able to get him clear, and I just kind of went up a little bit, and we touched, and I tried to jerk him back down, and it was just too late and he got off the track. So I do apologize to him, and did not mean to do that. But other than that, it was just kind of, I knew if I didn't get in front of Neil, it was just kind of a lost cause. You know, he was just so good. And I'll take second out of all today, though.
Now, you had obviously a really great run at Dirt Bristol. You have a really good run here. It seems like you're good at all the tracks that I would classify as really difficult. How much practice did you put in for coming to this track tonight?
Well, normally I do like just a little bit of practice for road racing. Like I'll practice a bit just to get a hang of the car and how it handles. But this week I knew that I was at a disadvantage with my wheels, so I practiced a little bit more than I normally do, I'd say. And it definitely paid off. I'm not normally really good at these road courses, but you know, tonight with it being kind of new, I think that really helped us get a P2.
All right. Well, again, congratulations on the podium. Before we let you go, is there any shout outs you'd like to make?
Yeah, we got CC Racing, LMM, you guys for broadcasting, EPI, just everyone that is on the car, and everyone that broadcasts and runs the league, and just everyone that did everything to get us going.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Blake. We're going to let you go hang out with your team, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep, thank you.
Blake Giglio out of the booth, and now I'm going to hand it over to Tyler Orm for Bryson Hixenbaugh.
Well, I'm here with our third place finisher, Bryson Hixenbaugh. And Bryson, congrats on the podium finish tonight. It was a hard race out there for everyone. You started 11th, ended up third. Pretty respectable finish. Do you have any particular strategy going into this race?
I guess the strategy really played out of just pit as early as possible to make it on the fewest stops and hope the caution came, and it came at the end with like 30 or 20 or so to go. I'd been one of the only people that pit. I was right in front of John, and the caution came out, and I got to be the leader. And I tried to just hold on as best I could there. John ended up spinning out and took himself out of the race, and then it was me and Neil, and I wrecked myself from the lead, like I've been known to do on road courses. It's disappointing, but I'm glad I didn't lose too many spots and ended up back in third. That last restart gave me a couple more spots there, and it worked out in the end.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of chaos, especially with the random cautions being thrown out and the restarts bunching everybody back up going into turn number one. And I mean, was there anything in particular you were trying to do on those restarts? Just would you prefer the inside, the outside, or is there any rhyme or reason to what you wanted to try?
It's definitely preferring the inside. You had more space to move out if you needed to. You could pull to the inside and make it 3 wide if you needed, or like hold serve in the center. If you're on the outside, you're just trapped there, and luckily I was on the bottom for most of those restarts, and just driving it as deep as possible and hope the other guy goes off into the grass.
Was there anyone you'd like to thank tonight?
And I'd like to thank all my family and friends for watching. They've been supporting all year long. I haven't had too many broadcast interviews because early season didn't go too well. And fortunately, I've been winning the non-broadcasted races. So it's been good lately, but hopefully we'll get more good finishes on the broadcasts.
Well, once again, congratulations on the third place finish, and glad you finally got an interview here on the broadcast.
Thanks, guys.
Back to you, Corey.
All right, so that's our post-race show, and saw a great race here at Indy. Saw a lot of drama, saw a lot of strategy. We saw Delaney take himself out with the other dominant car, and Pearson picked up the slack and put himself in victory lane. Any final thoughts, guys?
Yeah, I was a little bit skeptical on the random cautions. I wasn't sure what to make of it, but I really think it made some interesting strategies and some drama happen naturally throughout the race, and it just goes to show you that, hey, just because you're fast in the beginning of the race, you've got to keep the car clean and excuse me, and make sure you're there at the finish.
Yeah, this was probably one of the most fun road course races that I've seen in quite a while. I had a blast up here in the booth. These guys really made it interesting. Ever since the first caution, we had pretty much split strategy down the field. So at any given moment, you could see the running order just get completely jumbled up. And then towards the end, we saw that through all the chaos, consistency paid off. And you know what? I like that. One of the things I've always loved about NASCAR is just that it's one of the more methodical motorsports. You really have to pick and choose your battles and, kind of pace yourself. And I've always found that fascinating. And tonight, that was the exact style of racing we saw. So it was a lot of fun, and had a lot of fun with you guys.
Definitely a fun race to call. A lot of stuff going on. Again, just channel maintenance here. If you haven't liked and subscribed, would appreciate if you did that. We'll be back with you guys next Saturday night for the Michigan 400 here on the channel. And we have a couple broadcasts throughout the week here on PTR TV, so don't want to miss it. Check out our social medias as well as PrimeTimeRacingTV.com. But it's Corey, Andre, and Tyler signing out of the booth tonight. Have a great night, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.